Yes, we are what?
Hey, welcome to the Irvington Planning Board meeting of December 6th, 2023. Before I start into the agenda, I want to congratulate all the volunteers who decorated the village, one of which is my wife. They did a terrific job, and remind everybody that it's the holiday season and tomorrow night is the first night of Hanukkah. Hey, moving on with the business at hand. The first order is to introduce everybody. It's Sarah Palermo. She's the gatekeeper on Zoom. Ed Marin is the village building inspector. Doug Hahn is the consultant engineer to the village. Marianne Stessage is the village attorney. Lori Davidowitz is on the board. Dan McGillicott is on the board. I'm Caesar Manfredi, the chairman. This is Mike Smith and Mike Bafulco. The first order of business is the minutes of November 1st, 2023. Marianne, everything was in order with the minutes?
Yeah, great.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of November 1st, 2023. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Okay, the order of presentation tonight, and I'll say it beforehand that 2022-21, 52 Field Terrace it has notified us that they will not be appearing. So if anybody is listening for 52 Field Terrace, they will not be appearing at their own request. Number one is 49 Field Terrace. Number two was what I said, 52 Field. Number three is 205 South Broadway. Number four is 37 Maple. Number five is 26 Hudson. Number six is 10 Half Moon Lane. Number seven is 9 Meadow Way. Number 8 is 50 Half Moon Lane. Number 9 is 4 Oak Street. And 10 is 88 Fargo Lane. If you're here for 205 South Broadway, you're really number 2 tonight. And I expect number 1 to be short, so please be ready.
Number 7, 9 Meadow Way, we're gonna work with them offline.
Well, I just heard that number 7, which was number 7, 9 Meadow Way, will not be heard tonight because it's a question of the floodplain, and there needs to be lots of technical discussion on the compliance with the DEC floodplain rules, because we don't want to get the village in trouble with DEC by making a decision that doesn't sit well with DEC regarding the floodplain. So number 7 has chosen to work offline and not take up our time. All right, number 1, 49 Field Terrace, that's 2023-36.
Good evening, Douglas McClure for Subhani Chandra and Sumit Mohan at 49 Field Terrace.
Hey,
How
Doug,
you doing
before I
tonight?
forget,
Yes.
you've got to put your hand into Christmas like you do for Halloween.
Well, years ago we did a Christmas set with that Parker arranged, but we do have to do something for the holidays. I'll take it under advisement with the committee.
Okay, go
Go
ahead.
So this is a project that has been in front of you before for some architectural work. And now we would like to review the landscaping. Sarah, is Dean also on the call?
He didn't have his hand raised.
All right, I'll text him and hope
The raise hand button.
I'll text him and hopefully he'll join us. Let me share my screen and we can get started. Can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the project. This is the site as it was originally laid out. The shaded areas were patios and walkways and stoops that have been removed or we are proposing to have removed. And then this is the work we are proposing. So it's, they've changed the friggin' thing here. It's patio here with some stepping stones. And that's really the extent of the new work in the background, in the back area. That's coverage that has changed. The numbers, as we noted in our letter to you, and as we, as Doug Hahn pointed out, the original site plan coverage was 3,383 square feet, and this proposed landscape work reduces that to 2,971 square feet for a reduction of 412. And that is really the extent of it. We got comments from Doug's office. Most of them are very addressable issues, a lot of graphic issues, which we can deal with. There was a question about the vegetable garden. It's just a vegetable garden. Hold on one second here. It's an on-grade and vegetables. There's no curbing. There's no nothing. It's just plants. And there was a comment about grade elevations clearly indicating how such grades will meet existing. I think that's clear in Dean's plan. Dean hasn't raised his hand yet, I imagine, has he?
No.
Okay. But essentially the grades are just very easily sloped down. There was a retaining wall in this area here.
No, that it was minor. It was, I think some of the layers may have been off or something. It wasn't
Okay, great.
so we can move on.
Okay. So that's the extent of the project.
All right, the new driveway we approved is in. Has anybody
Yes.
looked, Doug, at all the planting that we approved for the new driveway? I was up there, but I looked at the driveway, but I didn't think of looking plantings are in.
It has not been put in yet due to the season, but we are planning as soon as things warm up a bit to put all that in. That is scheduled to go in. We didn't want to put it in and have it damaged and redo it again, but that hasn't changed.
Okay, and there's not going to be any fencing around the vegetable garden?
It's there now.
Yeah,
It's
there's
there now.
existing fencing there now, yes.
Okay, because I was wondering if you were feeding the deer or not. Okay.
No.
Okay, any questions from the board, Lori? Dan?
I have no questions.
Mike Smith,
No questions.
Mike Bufuco.
No questions.
Sarah, any comment from the public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
Mary Ann, do we have a resolution?
Whereas on February 2nd, 2022, Sumit Mohan and Subhani Chandra received site development plan approval to construct an addition and relocate the driveway to their house at 49 Field Terrace, which work required a coverage variance, which was granted by the zoning board of appeals on January 25th, 2022. And whereas in December 2023, applicants applied for amended site development plan approval to modify the landscaping, resulting in a reduction in coverage of 412 square feet. Whereas a portion of the modified landscaping is in a different location than what was approved by the ZBA, thereby requiring a new variance from the ZBA. And whereas Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated December 4th listed a number of items with drawings. And whereas the planning board held a public hearing on the application on December 6th. Whereas the actions type 2 action under speaker and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants the application for amended site development plan approval for the landscape modification shown on the drawings entitled Chandra Residence Landscaping prepared by McSee Architecture. And the sheets are listed, and Mon Chandra Residence prepared by Dune Pushlar. Again, the sheets are specified. Subject to 1, complying with Han's December 4th, 2023 memorandum, and 2, receiving a coverage variance from the ZBA.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Any questions on the resolution? Anybody from the board?
No questions.
Take a motion to approve the resolution as read.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nobody opposed. Okay, thank you, Doug.
Thank you very much. I hope you all have a lovely evening.
And have a good holiday, and make sure the planting gets done. We don't want to see you,
Believe me, I am paying close attention to that. We will get that planting in.
thank you, Doug.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Moving right along, we're skipping over what I said was number 2, 52 Field Terrace. Going to number 3, 2023-34. That would be 205 South Broadway.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Christina Griffin. I'm the architect, and I'm here with Suzanne Levine. And she is the project architect, and we're going to put up the drawings right now.
Hold on one second. Hold on. Is there a way of making them louder?
Okay.
You're very, go ahead, speak now.
Yes, maybe I can do better here. See what I can do.
Maybe get a little nearer to your microphone.
Yes, I will. All right, can everyone hear me now?
That's better.
Okay, I'm Christina Griffin. I'm principal CGA Studio Architects. I'm here with Suzanne Levine. She's a project architect, and our clients, the owners, Zara and Reza, are also watching and listening in. I'd like to put up the drawings right now.
Can you see the
We're gonna go
drawings?
through.
No. Can
Yeah,
everyone?
we see the.
Oh, great, thanks.
You can see the drawing. We are going to present the small changes that we've made. They're in response to the comments by the planning board and comments that we received from Han Engineering. I'm going to give it over to Suzanne to go through each item on the drawings. And let you know, generally how we've responded to these comments.
Hi, good evening. There were a number of items that we addressed on the memo from Han Engineering, but I think I'll start with the comments from the board at the last meeting. There was a request to see some 3D views, so we could really understand the massing of these additions in relation to the existing house. So we prepared those for the last submission, and I'm just going to reorient you on this project just to remind you that this is an existing open porch that we are filling in for a mudroom. And then this is the existing single-story sunroom. And there was a question about how the proposed second floor would relate to this existing porch. And in fact, I can get in here a little closer. How the second floor addition would relate to this existing porch. And so I think, you know, the goal was to really preserve the architectural integrity of this beautiful porch. And you can see as, you know, the sunroom is connected to the lower porch, we have the second floor addition connecting to the upper porch, which is really an underutilized space in the house. We would also be repairing this porch, which is a little bit dilapidated at the second floor, and replacing the railing and the decking. So these views, I think, give you an idea of the scale of the second floor addition in relation to the existing porch. We have a lower roof line to keep it, you know, a little quieter than the main house. And we've introduced dormers and gables to provide architectural interest and tie it to the design of the original house.
Thank you. Thank you for the rendering, and you truly addressed my concern about something new fitting in with the existing. And my concern went so far that I consulted with two architects that are local. George Boyle used to sit on this board, and Earl Ferguson, who is used to architecture of the sensitivity of architecture to existing buildings. Both said that the new integrates well with the old without adversely impacting the uniqueness of the building. I think I said what they said.
Great.
So I thank you. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad. I will jump to the more, I'll jump to the numbers now, which are a little less fun. But there was I'm going to go through the items in the memo from Han Engineering. There was a slight discrepancy in the total lot coverage of about 10 square feet. So we adjusted our numbers. We adjusted our numbers to, you know, be in sync with Han's calculation. The memo also requested that we, and also my correspondence with Doug Hahn during the week, they requested that all the percentages on our drawings reflect how much the lot coverage and the floor area ratio exceed the allowable. So, so we've done that everywhere we have a percentage, just so everything is consistent. Our site plan has a few other revisions. We've added, as requested by the memo, the top of the wall and the bottom of the wall, these small, approximately 2.5 foot high walls. We're proposing to separate the driveway area here from the entrance to the mudroom, and also as we create a new stair down to the carriage house here, we have a low wall. Additionally, we have clarified the fencing. And I can take you through that in a later slide, but we have clarified the existing fencing at particularly the north and the south property lines, what is existing and what is being replaced. And I will take you through that in a future slide. We are also, we've submitted a planting plan by New York Green Roofs. They visited the site with their consulting arborist, and they've identified the few trees on the plan that had not been previously identified, and they also proposed a new location for a new dogwood to offset the removed dogwood at the new entrance to the mudroom.
Before you get off the trees, did you see the Suzanne Nolan's note that she appreciated some of the work you did to, forget the exact word, air spade, that was the word, on the existing dogwoods, but she felt you needed to do a little more. So I'm sure you can converse with her as to what that means.
I saw that she'd like a little more detail on the root protection, and we will provide that in the next submission.
Okay.
This was another sheet we submitted, but it was just really updating our total lot coverage, adding that 10 square feet into our calculation. Again, we submitted this sheet S5 was a zoning analysis of all the neighboring properties. We adjusted our totals by that adding that 10 square feet. Also in my correspondence with Han Engineering, they requested that the way we're presenting the percentage of the overage be, as I had mentioned, expressing it as a percentage over the allowable for the lot coverage and the floor area ratio. So this is what we submitted to you, but this is an updated sheet showing, using all the same data, but showing the percentage as a percentage over the maximum allowable lot coverage. So this will be submitted with our next submission to you.
How does that fit with the rest of the neighborhood?
So
Just
I'm
point
gonna,
out-
I'm happy to I'm happy to take you through this.
Well, just show us on the chart. Are you in the middle?
I'm going to show you just very quickly. This is lot coverage. All the properties were over, some significantly. When you average, we looked at 14 properties, and when you average how much they exceed the allowable lot coverage, the average is by about 50%. They're over the allowable lot coverage. And then we compare that to 205 South Broadway. The existing lot coverage is over by 31%. And with our additions, mostly paving, we are up at 35% over allowable. So, we feel like it's in keeping with the neighborhood. Same with floor area ratio, the 14 properties, most were over, some were under. When we averaged them, they were over by about 20.8%. And when we compare it to 205 South Broadway, the existing house is over the floor area ratio. It exceeds it by 9.5%. And with our new mudroom and that new second floor addition, we're at 15.9% over the allowable floor area ratio, which is under the average for the neighborhood.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump to the fencing, and I think it was just easier to show you in pictures. So I've added some pictures here. This is an existing wood lattice fence at the north property line, the side of the house. It's a bit falling, kind of falling apart in some places, and they'd like to replace it. So we will be replacing this with a new wood lattice fence. And additionally, on the north side, there is some chain link fencing. And so we would like to replace that with wood lattice fencing to match. So the whole north property line has a consistent fence style. On the south property line, there's an existing metal fence and then some deer fencing. So we'd like to remove the deer fencing and install a new metal fence to match the existing, so that the whole south property line has a consistent fence style. I just have some pictures here of the front of the house facing Broadway, the west property line, the old metal railing, and then in the back there is some wood lattice at the east property line, but it's really mostly a green screen of plantings. We submitted a planting plan, by New York Green Roofs, and most of our plantings, if you recall, we have a green roof with an addition below, and they've detailed the plantings that will be bordering the parking area that'll serve as a screen from the parking area. So they've developed this plan, and as I mentioned, they've also suggested a location for a new dogwood to offset the removed dogwood by the mudroom entrance. In response to the memo, we also submitted a lighting plan, a pretty simple lighting plan as part of this, creating a separation between the back entrance and the driveway. We're proposing a low brick wall with piers with lanterns on the piers to just provide better lighting here. All the lighting will be dark sky compliant and comply with Irvington code. So we have frosted glass, antique brass fixture. The other lighting is really just path lighting. that we are proposing at the entrance to this back entrance and along this new path. We also have there'll be a porch light at the underside of the roof, and some recessed lights at the soffit of the roof overhang to light up the barbecue area.
Excuse me, is
Yeah.
the dog on the lighting, the dark sky, but
Compliant, yeah, they did address that. They had, I believe, everything face down. Christina, how did you address that? That was it's right there,
to
yeah.
comply with our dark
Yes,
sky.
yeah, they're all facing down, or they have a cover at the top, or they have they will have this light
glass.
frosted glass as well.
Okay,
We also submitted revised civil engineering drawings from Hudson Engineering, and I'd like to apologize because there was a digital error in the printing, and unfortunately there was a layer of text that did not print in our submission, and that's why we have a few repeat items from the new memo from Han Engineering. I think they're items 5 through 8. And those were text omissions. So we will be resubmitting these plans with those text items in place.
Okay.
And I think that's all for the new submission.
okay, thank you. Doug, didn't they have a drainage issue that they had to do more on?
They did. We're still waiting. Like she mentioned, they did not submit a few things that we are looking for still.
Are you aware of what you need for the drainage?
I am aware, and yes, and I spoke with Hudson Engineering about it today, and they're going to follow up after this meeting, just in case anything else comes up that they need to address.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add before we poll the board and the public?
I think that's it.
I really appreciate those renderings. Nice job
Oh.
again.
Thank you. I'm glad. Yeah, it helps us too. It's great.
Yes.
It's a great tool.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, you all set? Lori? Dan?
I have no questions.
Mike Smith?
No questions.
Mike LaFuco?
No questions.
Sarah? Public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much, and you got your homework, and you believe you know what you need to do. You articulated it well. Thank you. See you next time. See you next year, as they say.
Can I ask, I guess we wanted to ask, is that, so we will satisfy these last items, and I guess we are hoping at some point to be recommended to the zoning board, but we will discuss that at the next meeting. Is that the plan?
If you do the typical good job of responding to all the comments.
We'll do
more than
that.
like-
Okay,
We will.
that sounds great. Okay,
Well, they're not missing any time.
You're not missing anything
Because
because
there's no December ZBA meeting.
Oh,
So you'll be
okay.
on-
okay, great.
That makes us feel better. Thank
So,
you.
yeah. All right, thank you so much.
Right. Have a good
okay,
evening.
thank you.
Bye-bye, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Number 4 is 2023-33, 37 Maple Street.
Oh, he's not pleased.
Good evening, board members. I'm hoping you can hear me now.
Yes, we can.
Great. All right. Good evening. Trevor Spearman, architect. We saw each other last month representing Nathan and Heather Martin regarding 37 Maple Street. We did a submission. We have a few comments from Han Engineering and a few revised pictures and drawings. I'd like to just go through perhaps just the revision component. So I'd like to share my screen. Hopefully you can see the drawing set at this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see it.
Great. Okay, so our drawing set consisted of about 8 sheets, site plans, various calculations. And so on drawing sheet number 1, there were I think 1 or 2 very minor changes as of sheet 2. With the exception of on sheet 2, we did add a view preservation sketch, which indicates that there is no negative impact on the view. Being west of Broadway, we are in the view preservation area. And that sketch clearly indicates on the lower center of the sheet here, I could kind of zoom in a little, it might help, that the proposed addition on the right or south side of the property has no negative impact, being that the house across the street on Maple, number 40, actually has a roof that remains higher. And although there's an ever so slight glimpse of the Hudson beyond, that would only occur above their roof line. So we don't see any negative impact there. Also discussed at the last meeting was a proposed coverage comparison chart. And we've included this in the set now. We analyzed several properties around, both on Maple and behind on Willow. And as you can see by my shaded areas here, these are the homes that are over in terms of coverage, and not just over by a certain percentage, but the shaded ones are over by the percentage that we propose. So about 75 to 80% of the properties in the area have a healthier coverage than we even propose, and that's post proposed construction. On the next sheet, we had 1 or 2 minor changes. This is now just a drainage sheet. We've separated the landscaping plan, and Mr. Hahn has provided a couple of comments, mostly due to drainage. And I'll have a quick question for him at the end, perhaps. On the next sheet, we have a dedicated landscaping plan where we did get a tree report from an arborist, a certified arborist, through Bartlett Tree Service. And you can see the overlay map here with the list of those trees here. And according to Mrs. Nolan, we provided 1 or 2 details also, and a clearer map of exactly what we proposed removing and keeping and protecting. In addition to that, on this sheet, there is a mitigation plan indicating several trees that we propose as mitigation for the removal of other trees. Now, being that it will come up in a minute or 2 in my presentation, of great note here is where we propose the garage addition, is that there is a line of Leyland cypress trees there. They are not protected by the certified arborist. He concurred, and also Ms. Nolan seems to concur in her letter that these are not protected trees and could be removed at any time. And this comes to a screening conversation with the neighbor comments that I'll get to in just about 2 minutes. Here we have proposed plans per the previous set. And here we just clarified the locations of the fence in our elevations here, which I think was actually one of the board questions as to exactly where the fence might be located. And here we have our sheet that just contains details, elevations on our garage. And this, if we just zoom in perhaps here, we can see that the large change that we did, per the planning board comments before, there was some confusion as to whether it, would appear like a 3-peak garage. When combined with the garage that's at 33 Maple, obviously out of our control, but there is a garage at 33 Maple that would remain and we have nothing to do with. But then we simplified the 1 peak of our garage to kind of make it more conducive also with various other neighborhood garages that exist. So in the neighborhood, we did an analysis and we found that there are at least 3 2-car garages, all placed right at or within a few feet of the property line. We analyzed them on the lots they exist. We took a picture for the board here. we're happy to include this set in future going forward or keep it as a separate sheet. But 20 Station Road, for example, is the first, when you make a first right onto Maple, it would be served by a driveway that is on Maple. So it appears to be on Maple. Farther down, a house or two here on the left is number 3 Maple, and that is also a 2-car garage. Now, that garage is listed in the tax assessment at least, and by our estimation also, at over 500 square feet. We also have 11 Willow Street that has a 2-car garage, and that is the street that is located behind, although that is serviced by Oak Street. So our proposal is in the corner down here. We don't think we're setting any kind of precedent by the request to place a 2-car garage on basically a double size lot. In addition to that, we're asking for 394 square foot total, where we have a couple of other garages that are a little bit smaller, but certainly at least one that is larger and on Maple Street itself. So that detail here is indicated, and we are 1 foot from the rear property line. Number 11 Willow appears to be about 1 foot also, or on the property line, and the other garages are usually within just a couple of feet also of the property line. So our garage, what we've detailed here on this sheet is also on how to screen, we think, very successfully, the garage. There became a comment from a neighbor of not wanting to feel walled in. And we think that we've way over kind of compensated by creating some detail like this with climbing hydrangeas on a trellis panel. And you can see that in the elevation, it will effectively screen and make this garage virtually invisible from 28 Willow Street. In addition to that, for continuity, we would continue the same line of climbing hydrangeas on the proposed fence that is located along the property line. Now, if we were to talk about proposed fencing, we were fortunate enough, and the neighbor has been in contact with the board. We were fortunate enough to gain this photograph from them, which is a very good and fair representation of the current condition. They actually outlined their white pine that exists on their property. We, of course, would have no negative impact on that tree, nor propose any kind of work in that area. Here is the existing garage, the 1-car, and we propose bringing it across in this area about 11 feet. Now you can see that the white pine offers a generous amount of screening. And before I get to some other shots from the other side, if we could just take note that it is one Leyland cypress that is non-protected tree that offers some screening between their deck and the structure itself. Nothing to do with the garage. In fact, we are in an area where a 6.5-foot fence is permitted by my understanding of the code. And if we were to place a 6.5-foot fence, being that we possess 1 foot behind the garage, that would be a wall. And that is nothing that we want to propose. But we are in an area where that would be permitted. So we think that our request to permit an addition of 11 feet in width to the garage is very reasonable. In addition to that, the ridge line is the same height, but we have broken the eave to lower the entire structure and the eave height by 1.5 feet to minimize the effect of the wall as it travels across the additional 11 feet, proposed additional 11 feet. Now, excuse my very crude sketch here, but they provided this sketch, and I said, let me just show what the garage outline might look like, considering that right now we're looking in a kitchen window that is not screened. And we have offered, as per the letter and our submission to the board, to plant 2 more equivalent size white pine trees, or if they prefer evergreens, or if they prefer and enjoy these Leyland cypresses, we could do those too, up to a height of approximately the top of the window here, which might look something quite crude, but something like that. So these 2 evergreen trees could screen and satisfy the elimination of the one Leyland cypress tree that is not protected anyway. In addition to that, our screening would travel across at a height of about 5 to 6 feet across here as climbing hydrangeas that would give all the necessary screening on the lower portion where the existing Leyland cypresses behind the white pine would be proposed to be removed. Now, of course, that white pine can stay, and if they choose a different species tree, I think it would be up to them, but we can successfully maintain the screening that they are concerned about. So if we can make the garage effectively disappear, and we can satisfy the screening requirement similar or perhaps even better, because remember, we can strategically place these true trees to really maximize the protection from their deck to our structure. This is a picture from the bathroom window of second floor of 37 Maple. This picture looks directly towards their deck, and you can see that although the comment has been made that this provides all the screening between the structures, it is not the case. In addition to that, there is a large tree that is here that we propose removing because our garage wants to come across into this space here, and that roots will be negatively affected by this addition. But we propose more than adequate mitigation, and in our comments from Ms. Nolan, only have comments as to provide perhaps screening for our patio area, nothing to do with mitigation. I think she's well satisfied by the mitigation approach here. So if we just look at this one leaning Leyland cypress, which is not protected, has a DBH of about 2 3/4 inches, I think this one was. That really is the extent of screening between the residents. Now, if I go a little farther, you may argue that this dead limb here may provide some screening, because now I'm towards a bedroom at the second floor of 37 Maple, looking down towards where the proposed garage exists. Now, the proposed garage does not negatively or positively, at least from the second floor, offer any screening protection. But in a few photographs, I'll show you how that changes down to the first floor. This is the tree that has some dead limbs, but we do propose removing, although our arborist did say it is healthy enough to survive. We do propose removing that, but we are replacing that with about 1.5 times the DBH. On the first floor of 37 Maple, this is where the garage is proposed. We do see that there's some screening here that are offered once again by the non-protected row that could be removed at any time. This is a picture from the kitchen window, and we can see that there's a little bit of screening here offered at the edge of the deck, but actually the garage itself offers a good amount of screening. So I took this next picture immediately outside that very same window, and then I said to myself, I think this garage is a positive thing for screening between the first floor of 37 Maple and the deck of 28 Willow. So once again, a very crude rendition here. Here is the new garage profile. This is where the garage roof extends up and actually gives better privacy between the deck and the first floor of our residence. Now, at 37 Maple, if we consider that our new 2 trees would top over here to protect the second floor, that we are willing to pay for, and plant obviously only on 28 Willow side, because we do not have the space to plant them on our side. I think that's a very fair interpretation of, providing a very good amount of screening. Now, their white pine is located here, and this is a shot taken just from the school side of the property. And you can see that it offers quite generous screening alone to the garage. So when in combination with 2 more trees and the screening placed along the climbing hydrangeas or equivalent, we feel that there's really no negative impact on the neighbor. If they prefer another species to the climbing hydrangea, we'd love to have that conversation, but we do not think that there's any negative impact here. Once again, in an area where a 6.5-foot fence could be located, we propose something that has a tremendous amount of screening here where they will not see, the garage, or see it very limitedly, perhaps intermittently between the branches. And that's the current condition right now. So one of the comments came from the neighbor that they would perhaps be okay if the current screening could be preserved. And by that, I think we're talking about just this. So if we placed our 2 trees here, I think the only negative is they have to place the screening on their side of the fence. And in the comment in the email from the neighbor, they said something to the effect of, you know, we're throwing the screening problem over the fence. Well, I would argue that they're enjoying the screening that my client is providing, but under no circumstance, because they are not protected trees, would it need to preserve. Now, of course, we're trying to work with the neighbor. We're trying to ask for a variance here, and there are about 2 or 3 variances required. So we're looking to work with the neighbor and just come up with the best possible solution. But we think that we can provide that solution, you know, by what we indicate here. I believe my clients are close by there in the front row. I think I think that's them. You know, I think the benefit to my clients is huge. I know we need a few zoning variances. Other items from Mr. Hahn on the comments are easily obtainable. Actually, just the one yes or no question for Mr. Hahn, if he can answer. We have deep test pits and perk tests from about 10 years ago. Are they usable at this moment, or should I order and get some new information?
Why don't you send them to me? We'll look at it.
Is it near the same location that the existing one was?
Why don't you send them to me and take a look?
Okay, we'll do. Yeah, we used them last time, but I think we've got one new location that was not deep tested, deep tested before. That would be in the driveway location. So I'm not sure if maybe we just do one local there. Perhaps that satisfies. Anyway, with that said, I don't want to go on too long. So thank you for your time. And if possible, I'd love my clients to be heard at this moment.
Well, we'll let the planning board discuss what you already presented first. We reserve those public comments for the end after we're finished. Well, first off, I'm glad you clarified that the Leland cypress are not protected. I think you did a good job clarifying that about a dozen times. I drove around and a couple of things were apparent in terms of the other 2-car garages. One is actually in the front yard of the house. There's another that the rear of is close to the property line, but adjacent to the rear of that 2-car garage is the sidewall of the neighbor's garage. So the impact of that 2-car garage is negated by the neighbor's garage. So using them as examples is not necessarily something that I would consider. The other thing is, I think this is difficult because there is a special needs involved. And one of the letters regarding the special needs is that the car needs to be warm, but you have an existing garage to keep a car warm. And just the bulk of a second garage, I didn't find any other properties with a 2-car garage in the rear. The other thing I just observed that it's kind of, to me, the S-turn to get into the garage is difficult at best, and maybe not at all. Especially today when I went by, there were 2 cars in the neighbor's garage. There was no way you're going to be able to get in that garage with the 2 cars on the neighbor's side of the driveway to make that S-turn into. So I don't know if I know it's impossible for us to pass a resolution that the neighbor can't park their cars in their driveway so that you can get your car in their garage. And the coverage, I think from my point of view, if you put a parking space there, you're still going to have a coverage issue, which the ZBA would address if they want through a variance or not. But you achieve one of the other aspects of the special needs is that there's a special needs caretaker that needs a place to park. So that would be addressed by a parking space. And that parking space could be angled to make access to it much more easier than the S-turn into a fixed structured garage. So all the other aspects, I feel that, you know, you did a decent job. And if you were to go with a parking space, you could leave all the existing trees, protected or not, in place, and have a parking space for the special needs care person. I gave it a lot of thought because, you know, it's a sensitive issue having a special needs child, and it requires a caretaker and transportation to get wherever they need to go. Anyway, those are my thoughts, and I'll open it to the board. Lori?
I have a question about the climbing hydrangea. What happens to that in the winter?
Yeah, so it maintains, it maintains most of its greenery, although its flowering has, actually, it depends on the species. From my understanding, there's 2 seasons of flowers that occur, and it depends on the species exactly as to what that happens. But no, the greenery survives, and it doesn't strip down to, you know, vines, if that was kind of the concern.
Thank you. Yeah.
I just thought of another issue.
Mhm.
You said screening.
Go ahead.
The proposed cypress or other on the neighbor's property to screen your garage. The leaf and cypress, I mean, you're talking about 5-foot diameter as they grow, or big, because they grow fast. And by planting trees on the neighbor's property to screen your garage, those are going to make the backyard smaller because they grow. And the issue initially, I think I used the word, you're suffocating the neighbor, because they're looking at 3 garages and not 2, because it's the neighbor. It's not your garage, but it's there. Okay, I'm sorry.
I mean, I'll just say that I know in general, this neighborhood is a challenge as people want to renovate and expand homes. It's not the first time we've encountered residents wanting to do something. We have a different house later on today. So I'm curious to hear the other board members' comments and also from the audience.
Yeah.
Well, the mitigation was well done, seemingly, but the parking is a little tight, and again, it might pose a problem for the residents and obviously the neighbors, and as Lori mentioned, the neighborhood too. You know, there's needs of what the people want their neighborhood to be like. So seemingly your neighbors seem to want to work something out or agreeable to all parties, but that's about the topics that should be addressed, which seemingly you are, but we have to strike a deal somehow.
Mike Smith?
So some of my comments would depend upon your answers to the issues raised by the chair on why a parking space in lieu of another garage wouldn't solve a problem. Also, I don't know, you know, drawings do not really convey how tight that space really is, how tight the driveway is with the neighbor, especially when you walk by there, and how tight what Caesar said was an S-turn. I don't know whether there's some way that you can actually depict how you anticipate getting a car into that second garage, some sort of moving image that would show us that. But as many times as I walk down that street, I just can't picture coming down the driveway and trying to turn into that second garage. And yet I agree that it seemed to me that the parking space seems to be a solution while being able to use the existing garage. And you probably would need to improve the existing garage, but the existing garage to be the one to have the car warmed. That's all I have.
Mike Busuko.
I kind of have the same questions. I'm interested in listening to the owners and their reasons. Just a small other question, the tree that you're suggesting taking out, that doesn't need to be taken out necessarily, what's the diameter on that one? You said there's a large deciduous tree behind in the back that doesn't need to be taken out necessarily. Is that correct? It's not
Yeah,
gonna be down.
so that tree does need to be taken out for a garage bay to exist. Its root overhang in the area would be too close to the garage excavation on the southeastern corner. And just if I may, on the 2-car garage, it's acting as if when you go to a supermarket, a shopping center, you've got 2 spaces that can be as small as 8 or 9 feet wide, but they work together because when you open one door, you can actually open it and overhang the line slightly, so that they don't need to be 10 feet wide each. If we went with keeping the existing garage footprint and a second bay of parking only, number one, the existing garage, as we all know, I mean, vehicles generally are getting bigger, unfortunately, but even a small vehicle would be so tough to even get in or out of that vehicle. I believe everyone in the neighborhood, I could be proven wrong, but I think everyone in the neighborhood uses it for storage and no one uses it for parking. It's a very small 1-car garage. In addition to that, then, as you propose a parking area there, you would have to wait to clear the nose of the car as you reverse. You can't start turning until you clear the outside edge of the existing garage structure. So we would have to increase the width of this probably in the neighborhood of about 3.5 feet. And that would increase the coverage because any parking space under Irvington Town Code is coverage. In addition to that, then what I've done is I've designed it with a two bay wide garage door. So what happens is you're able to slightly cheat as you reverse out maybe 50–60% of the car, you can slightly cheat the car and turn backwards. Now on the previous submission, I did have the graphics and the motion turnings of each step of each bay turning back. But for clarification here and the fact that we were kind of getting more into working drawings or the potential for working drawings, we removed those. But we're happy to provide a diagram. And I also think of like a commercial parking space where you have an aisle that is typically, can be 22, but very often is recommended to be 24 feet between the backs of 2 spaces. Now that is designed for pickup trucks, delivery vans, and they basically reverse back and are able to turn within that 24-foot aisle and then go forward without a second cut. Here we have about 20 feet plus we can overhang the curb by about 1.5 feet. So certainly with any reasonable car, it's easily doable in a very simple kind of a 3-point turn, I guess, right? It's 1-2 or 2-point turn. So yeah, we didn't find that, and those motion like steps of the car reversing were on the previous set.
I think, 1 second, Mike, just something he said. I think you said that just having a parking space require more coverage than the garage. And I find that hard to believe because the garage has fixed walls. So you're saying that turning into the fixed wall garage is less coverage than pulling into a parking space that has no walls? I don't believe that. Go ahead, Mike.
I think it'd be helpful to see that. I think explaining that to the board is going to be really difficult. Showing us on a piece of paper, I think what you're saying is with the existing garage, the front right corner gets in the way of making a left into the space. But if that was a double wide door, you'd be able to use some of that open space to get in. So I think it'd be really helpful to draw that out because that does make sense to me.
Mike, that would require no car on the left space.
But that's why I'm saying the drawing had a car in there, see if there's really enough space. And
No, but that's not true. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but that wouldn't be true that you don't require no car in the other space, because
I
when
think
a
the
car
drawing
is
is the only
located
way to
in there,
follow that.
We can't both talk at the same time. Mike DeFuco is talking.
I think really a drawing is gonna be the only way to settle this. It doesn't, you say you think it does, and we say we think it doesn't. That's a kind of a stalemate. I do still have questions about the tree. And so I could have misunderstood, and just correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that you had said you want to take it out because of the roots, but your, I guess, landscape arborist said it would survive if potentially.
so he said I had looked at the tree and actually have a picture of it, and we could look at it now, where it looks diseased, it looks in trouble, but he said with a very good pruning, several branches removal, it has the possibility to live. Now that would be without any kind of garage addition. But with the garage addition, it's within the the root system of that tree. And so we propose taking it out as part of this project. But our mitigation is 1.5 times the DBH in several other, I think 6 or 7 other tree locations.
Sure. Yeah, I understand that. Thank you.
Given the conversations, Laura, any further questions?
Not right now.
Dan,
Not at this time.
Mike Smith?
Nothing further.
And Mike, there was a replacement tree mitigation for a tree that was coming down. I don't know if it's the tree you're talking about, but Suzanne said that the replacement tree, maybe you can clarify that. But there was a replacement tree for a tree that was coming down. Is that correct? Let the record show he nodded yes.
Yes.
Sarah, anybody on Zoom?
Nobody's raising their, oh, yes, there is somebody raising their hand. Betsy?
I
Can you
should
hear-
note that
Oh.
there were several letters going back and forth regarding this between the neighbors. It was, from reading them, they were very constructive letters, and I give everybody credit for rational conversations in the letters. They were appreciated. Thank you. Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, I let her.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, hi,
Yes.
can you hear us here? I have Andy
Yes.
here with me. Yeah, okay. I'll let Andy take it away.
Okay, gentlemen, and ladies, I believe you've all
Excuse
seen
me.
you have all
Excuse
seen
me.
the letter.
Hold on 1 second, please. You need to identify yourself with your address and name.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm Andrew Raybold, 28 Willow Street, Irvington.
Okay.
This is the first time that we have heard Mr. Spearman's responses, and there's several things there which I think we need to go through. Firstly, can I ask that you've all received the letter we sent?
Yeah,
Days ago?
acknowledge that. I acknowledge that as you were, as Sarah. was
Okay,
giving
yeah,
you-
sorry. We're cutting out here, I think, to some extent. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's it. So as regards the screening, I think the point here of our one of our comments is that the screening that exists certainly could be removed if the neighbours want to, but it seems to be an opportunity to put in something that that would not require, or which would be perfectly satisfactory if we could put a any sort of solution that doesn't involve removing the particular trees we're pointing out. Then it would be an opportunity for doing something further. We would not really have an objection to a garage if if the current visual situation could be preserved. With regard to the hydrangea, we have a number of concerns about their viability, given the way that the deer in this particular neighborhood will go out after virtually anything that's not extremely deer resistant, and we can well believe that or anticipate that these hydrangeas are likely to be decimated by the deer, and one of our concerns generally about screening in front of a garage is, if this experiment fails, then where are we? We have a garage and the screening has failed. What recourse is there in that situation? Mr. Spearman showed some pictures taken from the windows of 37, pointing out various screening effects there, and that's fine if you're living in 37. But we're in 28 Maple, and sorry, Willow, excuse me, and the view from there is the view from there. It's what you saw in that picture, for example. So I don't think arguments being made from the view through a ground floor window on 37 Maple Street count for much in that regard. And the suggestion of, we realize that stuff can be removed, that the trees can be removed that currently serve as a visual buffer, but it still amounts to putting the burden of mitigating a variance on across the fence. There's no two ways about it. That's just the way it is. With regard to the, I'm just going through a list here. I probably have a bunch of things to say about the turning circle. I think people have been missing the point there, which is not so much going in and out the garage from the parking lot, but getting from there down the driveway when there's cars on the other side. But we'll put that aside, I think, until we see what sort of picture could be drawn for that situation. One thing that hasn't been touched on so far by anybody is our concern that this will set a precedent that can be used by neighbours to possibly, a current or future neighbour on the adjoining property 33, or anybody, whoever's owning the and current or future owners of 37 to put structures along the along a property line simply by putting up a thin screening of hydrangeas. It's kind of an example of how this would go in what Mr. Spearman is saying. He is listing these two-car garages in the neighborhood and saying these set a precedent for having one here. Well, if they were to erect a two-car garage here with this, just by promising to put up some screening and actually putting up screening, whether it survives or not, that would set a precedent for our neighbours to build a second garage, or the subsequent owners, and for this to be done anywhere else within the village. So there's quite a lot in Mr. Spearman's presentation that was not brought to our attention in advance. So I would like to have an opportunity to respond more fully and in writing. After reviewing the video of this meeting. Sorry about that rambling, but I think that makes the main points that I wish to get across today.
Okay, thank you very much. We will be coming back for at least another meeting, so you'll have opportunity to gather your thoughts based on tonight. And you made a good point, which I forgot to mention, about the precedent of continuing to build on the property line. And I don't know if we have the answer now. Ed, maybe we could research it with your Google Maps. The other 2-car garages, which I mentioned, one of which is in the front yard, and the other one is protected by the neighbor's garage, so you don't see the back of the other 2-car garage. Now, this whole neighborhood probably would never get built today because of all the property line. Just about every garage is on a property line, and to continue putting garages on property line is not necessarily what I would like to see. And certainly if today's codes were around, they would have never got built in the first place. So do we know if the garages that the gentleman mentioned are pre-code, or the whole neighborhood looks like pre-code?
Or they would have variances. I mean,
Or they got
we'd have to research each property through our property cards.
Most likely it's pre.
Yeah, I would,
Most likely.
well, the condition of them kind of says pre-code.
Yeah, I would agree that they probably pre-code, especially the garage that's falling down on Willow Street. If you drive around, and we talked about it, I don't know how it's standing up. I
We'll
forget.
take a look at it.
I forget the address of it, but it's the second house on the left as you go up Willow. It's looks like it's not here for long.
We'll take a look at it.
Okay, we did the board, we did the Zoom. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to comment? Up to the mic, identify yourself, and this is not Dancing with the Stars.
Good day. I'm not a good dancer. So I'm Heather Martin. I am one of the 2 owners for 37 Maple. And I didn't intend to speak. I'm not a very good public speaker. And I might get a little bit emotional because when you have a special needs child, it's difficult. It goes beyond a heated garage. Trevor, I think you did a great job. I think what
Like the water.
no, I'm okay.
Okay.
I think that what Trevor was trying to do is really kind of like illustrates what we're trying to do as neighbors, which is to address the concerns in a neighborly way. So all of those points, whether it was taken from our window or he was trying to be thorough. So that was the point of that. I think there are a few things that are kind of bigger picture that haven't been discussed. One of those is that the existing garage that we're talking about, it's essentially a shed. So you can't fit a modern car in there, and the previous owners have been using it as a shed. So no matter what, we can't park a car in there as it exists. The other thing, that's okay. The other thing that I want to bring up. The other thing I just want to mention is that that this is an ugly garage, just to put it bluntly. We're not talking about a nice garage. And I mean, we peeked on the other side of the garage that you would see from the neighbor's property. And this thing is ugly. It's patched. It doesn't look good. So regardless of what the size is right now, it's an ugly, dilapidated shed. So so we're trying to make it actually look a lot nicer from their viewpoint, regardless of the exact amount of I can't tell you exactly what we're shielding from either side. And beyond these very specific types of plants and trees, we're just flexible. So we even offered to give a budget to the neighbor, pick out exactly what you want. Because for us, as I mentioned, even though we brought up having the garage heated, it kind of goes beyond that, because as a parent of a special needs child, and then, excuse me, maybe I should have taken the water. A 2-year-old beyond that, the mornings can just be difficult, you know, so.
I just opened it.
So, I mean, we're just kind of trying to make our lives a little bit easier. Nathan gets less emotional, so he can finish for me if he needs to, but we moved from Pittsburgh. Actually, do you want to take over? Because I'm not good.
Yeah, so I'm
Pittsburgh, the land of iron beer.
Yeah, Iron City. So I'm Nathan Martin. I'm one of the owners of 37 Maple Street. And I do want to say first, I have a tremendous respect for things like planning boards. We've owned a home on Nantucket up until recently. We're very comfortable with historic review. We come from a neighborhood called Fox Chapel in Pittsburgh, which is a nature preserve, has very strict code. I totally understand the intent and I support it. And we want to help to preserve this neighborhood. To know our background, you know, we have a daughter that has some severe challenges. We've uprooted our lives. We're entrepreneurs, started our own company. We're lucky enough to have sold that 5 years ago. So we do have some flexibility. We've been moving halfway around the world to find a place for our daughter to succeed. She's 6 years old. She has huge challenges staying in school. School refusal is a big issue. So in the morning, and I appreciate you have an understanding for kids with autism, but this is a specific thing. I need her to get in the car and go to school. We deal with her running away from school. She has a full-time aide while she's at school. We moved here because we found a special needs school in Rockland County, the Waldorf Outdoor School, which attends with 25 students. She's now attending school. I flew up here with her and bought a home in 2 days for $1.3 million at the end of Maple Street with a garage we can't use, a driveway that, you know, to your point, is 7.5 feet wide. It is so tight getting in that driveway that you have to squeeze up. Now we have 3 vehicles because we have 2 caregivers in addition to my wife and I. So we have 3 vehicles that we have to try to fit into that segment. It's also on a street that's a dead end with a fire hydrant at the end of that street. So there's no consistent on-street parking. There's limits on each side for the amount of hours in a day. So we cannot park on the street all day long. We need to park in a driveway, and it's actually more dangerous for everyone because we need to back out of that driveway. To answer the drawing that was there last time, the way the garage is designed, you drive in, you back out, and you drive out forward onto the street, which is much more safe. There is an area to turn around. You do not need to go into the neighbor's property. So I want to address all that. We uprooted our lives. We moved here on a whim. We are living in a rental house, and I'm honestly so frustrated to hear you say we'll address it at the next meeting. This is a process that every month I can't have a negotiation with anyone here. I have to present something, wait a month, and in this case 2 months before we even get to the zoning board. And I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do with my family because we were planning on moving into this house at the end of the year. I didn't know that this is what I was in store for moving to Irvington. I did not know this was what it was going to be about a garage. So anyhow, I'm sorry, I'm frustrated too, but I'm going to try to read a prepared statement instead. So thanks for giving me a chance to speak tonight. I could rebut each complaint the neighbor has pointed out point for point, but I think it's more important to take a step back and consider what I believe to be the overarching intent of the planning board, which is to preserve the beauty and integrity of the town of Irvington. We purchased a home on a double lot for $1.3 million that has a dilapidated garage that has been used as a shed by the previous owner because it's too small to fit any modern car. We are asking to replace an eyesore of a garage with a new 2-car modern garage that is usable, matches the size and scale of several other garages on the street. There are 2, and they are newer garages that are on Maple Street at the very end when you enter. And so we're trying to match that. We will keep our 3 cars out of view from the street. To do so, we're asking to remove a distressed tree. To be clear, it does not look good on our property that has provided screening for our neighbor's benefit, which has upset her. We have offered to pay for new trees to be installed in her property that will look much better and provide equivalent screening. While she has benefited from our tree for years, it is our right to remove it. All in all, we paid 1.3 for a house we're putting $500,000 into that we are tastefully and considerately renovating. We're driving up the value of the neighborhood, not bringing it down, as the neighbor's letters said. To me, we are meeting every goal of the planning board. Our neighbor to the rear, meanwhile, has been placing lawn art on our property apparently for years and is fighting to keep a disheveled tree in a garage that's in disrepair. We moved our lives here to attend a special needs school for our daughter. And unfortunately, when we tried to share our needs for the garage with our neighbor, she chose to forward our private health information about our autistic daughter's sensory needs to the planning board, which is inappropriate, to say the least. I think you're all aware of why this garage matters to our family, and we're happy to answer additional questions. We're sad that a more human conversation between our two neighbors wasn't able to happen. We want to encourage you to focus on the goal of your zoning laws and the mission of the planning board itself. We believe you are here to protect this neighborhood. We share that goal. We love coming to Irvington. This neighborhood is beautiful. I just didn't know that a garage, this is what we're going to spend 3 months talking about, is a garage. We're doing just that by investing in plantings, replacing an eyesore garage with an attractive one, and increasing the value of the homes on our street. I'm sorry to be emotional too, but thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. The two of you have brought something to our attention that was not, at least I didn't hear it, that the current garage is dilapidated and useless, which I was not aware of, and I'm sure nobody else here was. Is there opportunity to just refurbish the current garage slightly bigger to make it more modern? Or there's quite a bit of property on the school side of the house as alternates to a new garage. I don't know. I think the architect has to explore alternatives to come up with a viable garage that you can actually use, other than a big 2-car garage. And again, you talked about the board maintaining the character of and codes of the village. Building on the property line is not allowed. There's setbacks, and anything new, it goes to setbacks, and that's why codes were written, to prevent what happened in that neighborhood. Anyway, but you did enter a new wrinkle. Perhaps the architect, let me ask comment from the rest of the board on the new information.
I think that's helpful. I also want to say one thing I heard Andy say was he's not opposed to the garage, and I think that's very important. He's more concerned that the screening might not work and what happens if the screening doesn't work. So I think that's important to point out. I do agree that the deer love hydrangea. We can't keep them alive on our property. So that would be a concern, but it's not I do believe that you could mitigate that and come up with a long-term plan that your neighbor would appreciate. I also think that the architect has done an excellent job of explaining the placement of the garage and the roof line of it. But I agree with your frustration on timing, and that is something that the planning board, zoning, and ARB are working on. And I think that Caesar is correct too. We have issues with strict lines of where things can property lines and things like that. So it's a challenge all around.
Yeah.
As Caesar mentioned, perhaps you could pump out the garage a bit. And then you do have a lot of land on the south side of the home. To, again, maybe outdoor parking or some type of creation there.
Mike Smith.
I have nothing to add to what's already been said.
Mike Bufuco.
No other questions.
Sarah, anything coming back on Zoom, given the presentation by the owners?
No.
Let me just say,
Mike Smith,
you mentioned that we shouldn't, if the neighbor had disclosed the sensory issues, but the fact remains that we would have needed to know a reason, and you would have had to disclose a reason anyway for needing the variance. So it is to your advantage, although you don't want to have to discuss that, you would have necessarily had to. And I think whatever the outcome is, I think that it would be useful to explore whether the existing garage can be refurbished, enlarged to accommodate your needs without it being a double garage. And I don't even know what that would look like. And I don't even know what what the laws would be regarding it, and, you know, whether there's some difference on renovating an existing garage versus building a new one. But certainly worth exploring.
May I ask a quick question?
Hold on 1 minute,
Okay.
because you need the microphone, number one. You mentioned, it brought another question that I failed to mention, the current garage acting as a shed. There is an undocumented shed there. Do we know the size of the shed? Because that would count as coverage.
I think it's tiny.
Is it, well, we asked in the last meeting, is it more than 64 square feet? Is it on a permanent foundation?
It's a wood shed that we're removing. It's a.
Did you note it on the plan that's being removed?
I'm not sure if we did or not.
Is the shed, the undocumented shed noted on the plans as being removed?
No, so there was initially the desire or the thought to try to keep it. It is very small. It is basically like a log shed. It's very small, but I think
What are the dimensions of small?
20 square feet.
about 14 square feet.
Okay, does it have a base on it?
As a wooden.
It is sitting on concrete, but the concrete is perhaps maybe 1.5 inches thick and cracked.
Yeah, you need to put those, well, the concrete makes it a permanent structure. And it's not viable for the exception of under 64 square feet.
It says nothing to do with whether we're gonna go with the garage or not, but.
It's just another issue.
It's
that needs
another
to be
issue of
finalized.
coverage.
So you have to decide whether it's coming out or staying in, and if it's staying in, you gotta just remove the concrete floor. If it's under
Yeah,
64
I believe the
square
smart choice here, even though they may want a log shed for log storage at some point. I think the smart move here is just to get rid of it. We'll probably help our coverage numbers ever so slightly. It's very small. Though,
Right,
but yes.
correct. Miss, microphone. And you have to ID yourself here.
Okay, sure. 37 Maple, Heather Martin, one of the owners. I was just wondering if there's anything we can do between now and like post holidays to resolve this, because we are living in a rental.
Until
It's not like an exploration issue. Like we're just we're willing to do anything to kind of satisfy, to come to a solution as quickly as we can, regardless of what that solution is at this point. Is there anything that we can do like now?
Are you saying that you're holding up all of the renovations for the garage?
Yeah, because as a part of this permit.
You need the microphone, I'm sorry.
Nathan Martin, 37 Maple. So as a part of this, we have a permit now. Our house is entirely gutted. We're renovating it because we have an au pair that lives with us, a live-in caregiver. She needs to have separate housing. This is a really small house that had really one full bath and one full bath and 3 bedrooms. And we're renovating it, and we've excavated out the basement. So our first permit, which everyone approved, is to excavate the basement, and we're building 2 bedrooms in the basement. The problem is, as part of this permit set, we have to build access to that basement, which means a stairwell. So part of that drawing is the stairwell to the basement that goes down and allows entrance, egress. All of those window wells and things need to be cut out to allow us to finish that basement. So we have a residence for our au pair need to happen, and they're a part of this permit application in addition to this garage. And as I said, we have 3 cars because we have 4 people that are functioning at our house, and there is literally no street parking. If you've been there, you know it's the end of the street with a fire hydrant. People park in front of the fire hydrant, which they probably should not be doing, but there's no parking there. And when you drive up there, we're literally moving a vent from the basement so we can save 3 inches so that we can get up into the street. And our neighbors are really nice. We're friends with our next door neighbors, not the ones behind us clearly, but our next door neighbor, we're right next to them. So we have to all be careful when we drive in and out. So we're gonna be doing that, driving 2 cars to 2 different places every morning for our 2 different children, one special needs, one neurotypical. It's just like, it's insane. I just want to put a garage up. And I guess this process of saying like, can it be a little bit bigger? I mean, it's not okay for anyone to share health information. Yes, it's to our benefit, but it wasn't her decision to share that. It just wasn't. I sent a personal email to her. My wife sent a personal email to her. She sent it to the planning board. That's not okay to do with health information. It's not even legal. I mean, it's legal, but you know, it's just not okay. It's unethical. So in this case, like we just need to know, are you guys just like, you're just never going to approve this garage, or do I have to sit here and do this month after month And you say, go back, and we say, okay, go back, let's make it 3 feet bigger. Like, it's just insane. Like, we can answer all your questions. You can turn around in it. You drive in, you back out, you go to the whole side area that we're turning our whole backyard basically into a driveway and a garage so that we can park there. It's what you're going to see from the street is going to look much better. The only person who's upset by this is the person behind us, who we can't even have a conversation with. So yeah, they said they're amenable, they're open to things, but we can't leave a tree and put a garage there. It just doesn't work. So we'll put whatever plantings they want. We will give them a budget for whatever amount of money they want. I just don't know how to do this. And we have a daughter who literally would go to school with headphones on because she can't deal with changes in temperature, changes in sound. Like, these things are really hard to, when we try to take her outside in the winter and she doesn't want to go to school, then we have to deal with that. My wife had to quit her job over this. I mean, it's like, you don't understand how important. I know it's just a garage, but to us, it's really critical. I did not know it was going to be this big a deal. And literally, we are at the point where we might sell our home and move somewhere else because this is ridiculous, like insane. And we don't have anywhere to live post-February because finding a rental here for a family is really difficult. We're living in a rental with a lease until the end of February. We don't think our renovation is going to get done by then. So we're struggling to figure out what we even do post then. Now we're waiting around to January to come back to this board again before we can get approved to go to zoning. That thing's not going to get done. Even if you said yes today, it's going to be really hard. But you're not going to say yes today. You're going to say no, we'll vote on it later. Or you're not even voting. You'll recommend it later, maybe, and maybe you won't. So we might be into February, March before we can get approval. When are we moving into a house that I bought like last summer, hoping that when I relocated my family, I could move here? I'm frustrated. I'm very frustrated.
Just
Well, just so you know,
you can't go on the zoning
you
board.
can't go to the zoning board until after our next meeting.
Well, I can't go there until you guys actually
Well, you actually
vote on it. I don't even know if you all have to agree or what. What are you going to do?
Hold on a second. Can't go to the zoning board until you meet here again, because the zoning board doesn't meet between now and our next meeting. And the critical issue is not the tree. I mean, our arborist already said, cut the tree down and plant another. I mean, we do this all the time. We're very sensitive to trees as long as you plant another one.
Yes.
And you know, some trees are majestic trees that we'd like to protect at all costs. This does not fit that bill, it's just a replacement tree. The real issue is the building on the property line. And whether it was no neighbor or not, you're building on the property line with a bigger wall than what's there now. And I don't think alternatives have been adequately described. Now, I did not know that the current garage is in a dilapidated, unusable state. Which brings to mind, well, as Mike said, and I also said, that a slightly bigger garage would, to me, that seems to meet the need of something that you can use. There's also the property to the south of the building. And there's also the aspect, if you need approval of the steps that might, Ed.
It's an outside improvement. This is the unfortunate part.
Yeah, it could be separate the garage from this and approve what they need to live in the house.
It's still.
Or Mary Ann, maybe that's a better question.
No, you can. It just still needs to go to the zoning board.
Right, but it would.
Yeah,
make me.
Yes.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying if you want to, if that's.
I mean, to make the house livable.
Yeah.
And leave the garage for another day.
That's up to the applicant.
Yeah, I'm just bringing it up to make sure if they choose to do that and they can make it livable. That we could send it on to this without the garage, unless there's no change to the current thing. And actually, I don't think anybody here has decided to say yay or nay on the 2-car garage just yet. So that's an opportunity. I just wanted to bring that up. It happened to think of it when you mentioned the other things which I was not aware of, that you needed to live in the house. That if you need to live in the house, there is a path to make you live in the house. And then, the garage is, you can deal with not having the garage for a little while.
Yeah, we'll do that.
I mean, I'm sure your car has a external starter to make the car warm. But if it doesn't, you can get one.
No, we have.
So let's leave it at that. If anybody else has any thoughts now that we discussed the dilapidated garage?
We'll take that, by the way. Yes.
Excuse me?
Thank you.
We'll do that.
We'll do that, but it
Okay.
still has to go to them.
Yeah.
You still have to go to zoning
Yeah.
because there's still coverage issues.
We understand that.
And I'm not sure if they can,
Caesar, just to make clear, you're not giving it, so that would happen at the January meeting.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but
But they're not losing time because they can.
the
they
zoning
can be-
board's not meeting until after we do anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not losing any time. But yeah, I just didn't want them to think you've got the part approval
We
tonight.
understand.
It would have to be in
Now,
next month's.
the new
meeting.
garage with the new parking space would require a coverage, so is it possible to address the potential additional coverage when they go for the living space, so that if we ever approve the garage, the coverage issue is addressed once?
I mean.
It's a-
No,
if it becomes a
sounds like it's
hypothetical.
hypothetical.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
becomes a hypothetical.
Did not, no, I would not, think you could do. a
Trevor,
hypothetical
Trevor, can
variance.
you show me
Oh,
where
no,
the staircase is?
Five things.
The outside egress or the window egresses, please,
Yep.
on the site plan?
Second.
I'm trying to open it up. It's just not,
You know what,
Just a little too
Caesar,
much.
it doesn't, the coverage doesn't gain anything anyway, because they would need the setback variance also
Right,
for the
yeah.
garage, and then the garage has to be
the
resolved.
setback's
before
gonna
any
be
of
the
the-
problem.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
It's a mass and bulk on a property line.
Yeah.
It's
it's a tough call.
a tough call.
I mean, after you get this board, the zoning board could say, nah.
Is it under the porch, existing porch? Oh, it's out on the addition. I got it.
Yes, well, you've got, Ed, you've got an addition here with a covered porch. You've got an egress well and an egress well here also, which is bigger than the current egress well that exists here.
That it exists, yes, I got it. I can't see.
Yeah.
Is the back, there's a rear egress window on existing coverage. That one.
No, it actually gets bigger than the existing because the existing is not code compliant.
We got to cut some of your time. We're running really late with.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I was hoping for it being on existing coverage. We looked.
Okay. I think you have an avenue to at least live.
That's fine.
I want to just acknowledge your frustration with the process. I don't want you to take it personally. I wish you had watched our planning board meetings before you started this process. It's not unusual and it does need to be improved.
You know, it just brings to mind, a friend of mine was buying some property. And I said, you better talk to a lawyer first. Is it a
Right.
buildable lot? He talked to a local lawyer. And look, don't buy that lot. It's not built. You'll never, the size of what you want is gonna be a postage stamp. You can't, don't buy that lot. So it gets, forethought. It works a lot. I'm not saying you didn't have any forethought, but sometimes you don't know what you're running into. Because you don't know.
We just thought with it being a double lot, we would have a little bit more flexibility. Because
Well, like I said, there is room on the south of the school side.
access it somehow.
And then the kids don't have a yard.
Yeah.
That's the yard.
Okay, I think we're done here. You have discussed what you need to discuss with the owners, and we'll see you next month, next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
For your,
Happy New Year.
thank you. Same to you. Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, that was a lot of fun. Okay, we're on number 5, 2023-32, 26 Hudson Avenue.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is Sam Vieira. I'm the project architect for 26 Hudson Avenue. Matthew and Erin, the owners, are also on this Zoom. We have submitted some revised drawings with additional information as per the comments from Han Engineering on their memo dated October 27, 23. We essentially have addressed all of the items that could be addressed within our offices as far as the architectural. Let's see if I can. The architectural information. Sorry, I'm having a hard time here. There you go. So if I can just take you through the drawings that we had previously submitted and the additional ones, just to point out the new information, and then move on to the neighborhood study. Can everybody see the site plan that I have up on the screen?
No. It's not up.
No.
You gotta go to share screen.
Yeah, I thought I did. So we'll do share screen again.
While you're doing that, did you, there was a request to change the numbers into percent over the allowable coverage, not percent of the property. Were you? Did you get that?
We have done that, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, we weren't aware of that requirement, that specific calculation, based on the comment from the 1027 memo, but we were able to produce it, and I do have that for just a quick overview and analysis for the board's sake. Have I managed to share the screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Sorry. So anyway, so essentially, the site plan, nothing has changed. We did have a closer look at the coverage calculations. There was some confusion because there was a window well within a patio and a couple of window wells adjacent to the driveway, which doesn't count, but we've sort of cleaned that up, and we've been in touch with Han Engineering's representatives, and everybody is now on the same page, and we've all agreed that the numbers that are presented on the chart and that have been forwarded to you and forwarded subsequently to the zoning board, if we're fortunate enough to be directed there, are accurate.
Can we blow that up, or can they blow it? Can you blow it up, or can we blow it up?
No, I can. Yeah, I should be able to blow that up.
Can't really see the chart.
Sorry. Let me see here.
All right, now bring it down so we can see it.
I'm trying. Yeah. So I got to get rid of what I have to get rid of is these things. There you go.
Scroll down.
There it is. There it is. Yeah. Sorry, too many pictures.
Your property, I presume, is the one with the squiggly line around it.
That's correct. So if you look at that, we ended up, the calculation we ended up with is that 1,616 is allowable. Existing is 1,732. We're proposing 1,924. And so therefore that puts us at an existing nonconformity of 116 feet. And the variance that we would require is a total of a 308 square feet variance. With all of the different calculations on the worksheet, it essentially is a 19% greater than allowable variance we would be seeking. But presently, it is approximately half of that as existing. That's non-conforming.
Okay.
So,
Doug, last meeting, I have notes here that the coverage issue that it needed some work because there was some incorrect. Is the coverage now correct?
Yeah, we cleared all that up.
Okay. And also we talked about drainage needs.
They're waiting for, they want to work out the variance before they get their engineering and landscape architecture comments.
So we're conceivably, they could go to the ZBA
Yeah, but well,
and come back for a final. See if they get the ZBA approved before they spend money on getting the drainage correct.
That's the
that was what I was
request.
thinking of.
Okay. Is there any,
Yeah, that's our
anything
hope,
else?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, but the zoning board doesn't meet until after our next meeting anyway, and we don't
That's
have a
correct.
resolution tonight. So,
We wouldn't have a resolution because he's coming back after the zoning board.
oh, wouldn't we make a, oh, okay. Yeah.
But you know what, though? I don't have my distance glasses on, but aren't those just raw numbers? Does it have the percentage over compared to the other
Yeah.
houses? Okay,
Yeah, they changed the numbers to percent over allowable as
Okay.
opposed to percentage of the lot.
okay.
No,
Okay.
That was in the neighborhood study, Mr. Chairman. So our worksheet is presently correct now. The worksheet that was submitted with the revised drawings within, with the Excel format does show the percentage over. And we did add that. Now, of course, this is just a straight zoning chart. So just let me get through, if you don't mind, just to, so that you know that we addressed all of the other issues, and then we'll get to the neighborhood study. So anyway, so sheet SP2 is simply the outlining of how we arrived at the existing and proposed coverage, which again, Mr. Hahn has stated that we're all in agreement. Just sort of back these off a little bit. There was some question about delineating what is existing to be removed, what is going to stay. So that's what this drawing shows. This drawing, which you've seen, there's no real basic changes to it, shows the actual proposal. The additional notes here in this case, where we showed in plan, there was some question about the type of lighting. And what we did was we highlighted that there is presently a surface mounted light underneath the front entrance porch, which is covered, of course. So there is no night lighting, sky lighting, as you call it. There's also presently a single fixture spotlight on the side door that is aiming directly down to cover the door. So it has very little light bleed into neighboring properties. And then the only new lighting that we are proposing are two wall-mounted lights on either side of the new sliding door, on either side of the new wood landing that is like essentially a step down to the existing stone patio. And on this sheet, we're able to show you the location of the front, the side, and then the two new rear light fixtures. And they would look like this, where they're just wall-mounted light fixtures, solid top, solid cap on top. They called it like a pickled or a bubbled lens with an LED Edison light, which throws off a warm glow and does not have a lot of lumens. So essentially, those are the changes to our architectural drawings, which referenced, oh, I lost you altogether, which referenced, thank you, sorry about that. Okay, so here we are. Anyway, so the one thing that I think is important to the board, and what I want to point out, is that initially the neighborhood study that we performed brought us to only this column over here, and that's essentially just showing the coverage comparisons without the percentages and everything else that the board or that Mr. Hahn has requested. And what I want to point out is that even though we didn't have that additional information in our original submission, what you could ascertain is that the requested coverage, or proposed budget coverage, I should say, essentially falls right in the middle of the high and low in all the categories. So last night, we added the additional information that was requested on Mr. Hahn's memo from a couple of days ago, and we did increase the allowable coverage based on zoning requirements and then the percentage above allowed. And what we did is here we've recapped underneath it, and just want to read these off real quick to you because I think it's important. We have lots that range from 12,530 square feet to as small as 4,596. 26 Hudson Avenue is at 7,602. So it falls right in the middle of the range of this neighborhood. coverage, which is, just a straight up coverage, no zoning calculation, that ranges from 37.7% to as little as 7.9%. 26 Hudson Avenue is proposed to be at 23.2%. And then we go to the percentage above allowable. And what you have is a couple situations where we have some very oversized lots compared to the neighbors with relatively small homes. So we actually have a situation where we have a property that's at 59% below what is allowed, but we end up with properties that are as much as 62% above. And then 26 Hudson Avenue would come in at 9%, again, right in the middle of the range. And then finally, the allowable coverage using the formula required for this zone, we have properties that range from 2,405 to 1,103, and the proposal in this case is for 1,616. So if you take all four of those categories, the proposed addition would put 26 Hudson Avenue right down the middle of the range of the entire neighborhood. And by the way, I used all properties that have the same, that are in the right zone, in other words, two-family zone. If you go beyond the demarcated area here, we're now in a different kind of zone, which has different criteria for coverage. And so essentially we were able to, get this information added to this for tonight's meeting to give you some sense that we are not anywhere near any of the boundaries, the high or the low, for the neighborhood in general.
Okay. I presume you're completed your presentation.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any comments from the board?
No comment.
Maureen, Bill? Bill. In another life, we called him Bill.
No questions.
I have no comments. Mike?
No comments.
Mike Bucco?
Nothing.
Sarah, anything from the public?
Nobody is raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Anybody in person? No. Okay, the next zoning board meeting is after our next meeting, so is there a need for them to come back to our meeting next time?
I was just gonna say, if you're comfortable with the size of this.
Decide now.
Then it's decide now, and then there's, I mean, he's not gonna get anything till January from the zoning board, but
Right.
you wouldn't have to come back here until he's got his.
Right, yeah, you don't have to come back here. Go to the zoning board, and then we'll see you, assuming you get approval from the ZBA. We'll see you in, I guess that makes it February. Right?
Yes, but well, actually, Mr. Chairman, to expedite matters, if the client is successful with the zoning board, that would trigger their comfort in retaining the services of the site engineering to fulfill all of the other requirements that Han Engineering is required. So, I'm not, I can't promise we'll be back because it might need some more time, but we will surely be back.
I'm not requiring you to come back.
I'm sorry?
I'm not requiring you to come back.
No. I'm just letting you know. I'm just letting you know it's going to be a matter of hopefully getting the zoning variances we require and then coming back with the completed set of engineering drawings for review.
Right, and I would hope before you come back with those, that you get it to the point where Mr. Hahn and Maren are happy with the drainage, so that we don't have to ask you questions about the drainage and waste another meeting.
No, fair enough. We intend to use Hudson Engineering, and they have a good relationship with the village and Han Engineering. So I'm assuming that the two professionals will be able to come to an understanding of an appropriate stormwater mitigation.
Assuming the soils cooperate.
Yes, it's true.
That's also.
Okay, I think we're done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, next on the list, which would be my number 6, 2023-31, 10 Half Moon Lane.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mr. Chair. Excuse me.
Yeah, just take the test on the drum.
And your name?
Sure. I'm sorry. Darius Shafazada with the law firm of Harris Beach for the applicant.
And Patty?
Patty should be on too. And the applicant is on the Zoom
You're on
also.
mute, Patty.
Patty, you're on mute.
I thought that's what you like me best.
And you are?
Patty Steinsteiner, working for the owners of 0 and 10 Half Moon.
Before you make the presentation, because there may be others listening that are not involved in the early stages of this, I'm briefly going to go over some of the history. There was a meeting a while ago to determine site capacity of 3. We didn't go into that because there's an existing building on the site. And then there was a presentation that the site already has an approved subdivision. We did not see any documentation to that effect, so that went away. At the last meeting, we discussed subdividing. The last meeting, there was a presentation to subdivide the property, but the existing building precludes that because you can't create a subdivision with a non-conforming building on one of the lots. So now we're here today and to do whatever we're going to do. And I think it was decided at the last meeting that the applicant collectively decided that in order to subdivide, you need to take the building down. So I need to know exactly what you're taking down. There's quite a few structures on the property. And I need to know how long it's going to take you to take it down. If we don't want to see the takedown procedure the last 3 or 4 years and disrupt the neighborhood. And there's a swimming pool, there's patios, there's obviously a building. When you say take the building down, to me, that means including the foundation. Take the swimming pool down, that means taking all the walls out. And there's 4 columns at the 2 driveway curb sites of, you mean taking that down? You need to define what you're taking down. You present it, we approve it, and return everything to grade. Returning everything to grade is when I would consider demolition complete. So with that said, what are you taking down? Please articulate it.
You want me to answer that, Doris?
If I could back up a moment, Mr. Chair, we are here again for the subdivision proposal. There's 2 lots on the village town and village tax map that are existing already, 0 and 10 Half Moon Lane. We're here for a simple 2-lot subdivision. Some of the discussions with your staff have been that we would seek the subdivision, and prior to you filing the plat, and that was discussed last month, signing the plat, one of the conditions of the subdivision would be to remove the existing structures. That would be the house, that would be the pool, that would be the columns, whatever would be required from the building department to be removed will be removed. We don't have a construction plan yet. We don't have a specific detail of how long it will take, but the plan is to do what is required from the village, which would be to return it to grade. And then ultimately the plat could be signed by the planning board chair as one of the conditions, and will not be signed until that occurs, i.e. the demo occurs. So we are prepared to do that. We don't have the construction plan yet. We obviously can't get that for you until we're moving this project along. So we submitted the application to the planning board for the subdivision request for the 2 lots. And during the discussions at the last meeting, to have one of the conditions being the removal of the nonconformities, which we're fully on board with. And we will provide, likely by the next meeting, we can at least have an outline of the plan for construction timing, hopefully. Assuming we get the full subdivision at the next meeting, we would have a timing of removal of the buildings and the structures to grade, which we will present to the board at that time. We have submitted the.
You said construct. You mean construction? You're not constructing anything.
Demo. Excuse me. Demo.
Okay. He said that he has an application, and does the application articulate the exact details of what's coming down?
No, he's got an application in for subdivision approval.
Yeah, but part of that is taking down everything.
Yeah,
Right.
and he said he'll give us the details.
Okay,
at next
he
meeting.
will give it.
Or,
We don't have.
or we can, we can just say what has to be taken down.
Well,
But he's already
no.
said that.
In my past experience, my former life, there's the people who approve things and the things that people propose. The approval people don't propose, they approve it.
No, but you're saying that all of the non-conforming structures have to come down.
Yeah,
and we
he
can
has to
identify what
articulate
those
that.
are.
And we have a drawing that shows that. That's like the site plan drawing A-1 that's provided that shows two hypothetical houses to demonstrate that these lots work. It shows the existing house and the pool labeled to be removed. All of the structures would be removed, as Darius pointed out, to the point of, grading out the yard. I didn't show the four pillars to be removed. I showed the driveways there, but if you want those taken down, we'll add those taken down too.
I just want to be clear what's taking down. If you want to stay.
Yeah, this drawing shows that.
Okay, well, let's take down the post and say in writing, you're gonna return it to grade. No holes in the ground.
Okay, and I think yep, that's fine. That's fine.
And it should be clear.
No storage either. No construction storage.
No,
Make sure that's included in demo.
no construction storage or storage of materials.
Okay.
Okay, Darius?
Yeah, we're
Understood.
leaving, it's a clean site with a lawn. We're not, there'd be nothing on the site.
Just say that in writing and we're cooking with gas, but we can't do that
Good.
anymore. No gas stoves. There's another expression that goes away, cooking with gas. It was something else I had in thought. Oh, the scheduling. You need to put, I would like to see some scheduling. If we don't have scheduling, this could go, there's no reason not to have it go 3 years. I know you don't mean to do that, but things happen and things go on for 3 years, or many years. And the other thing that should be clear, the footprints that are shown here are projected footprints. We're not approving the footprints because it's not a site plan approval, it's a subdivision approval.
Correct.
Correct, we agree.
We're not approving the footprints because the footprints are a key element in the future view preservation process. So this is not a process to view the footprints that are demonstrated in this drawing. So don't get
Correct.
the impression.
And there's an elaborate note that goes into detail explaining that on that drawing.
Great.
Want to do
So-
the
so-
EAF?
Yeah,
Yes,
I would.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, go
No,
ahead.
Unless you had something to add, Darius, the chairperson was looking for what's the next
Nope.
step. Yeah, I think the next step, you're not ready for the, any resolution tonight. But, I think you should go through the environmental assessment form and
Yes.
it's either, NEDDEC or POSDEC it and get that done. So then we will be ready for a resolution next week. Now, they provided the part one, which is just the information about the site. And it's up to the board to answer the questions on part two, which you all have a copy of part two. Those are questions for the board to answer. It's blank because you guys have to fill in the blanks.
Okay, I'm going to ask Mary Ann to read the question and then she'll look up at me and we'll poll the board on each question.
Okay, will the proposed action create the proposed action now being the subdivision? Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? I know we can answer no on that
No.
because it's consistent with our zoning.
Hmm.
Okay. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? I have some, okay,
I would think it's minimal or no. And I'll ask the board.
I agree, minimal.
Anybody disagree with no? On the board?
No, I agree.
Agree.
Okay, no.
will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
No. No, Lori,
No.
Mike and Mike.
No, nope.
Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? And the CEA here is the Hudson River, because the house is on Hudson River.
Right. No,
No.
no.
Will the
No.
proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway?
No.
That was, no, Mike, no.
No.
Number 6,
Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and fail to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities?
no. And the new building codes has requirements for higher levels of insulation.
It's just, yeah, it's a total package. It's not one thing.
Yeah.
And Village of Everton has an additional, what's called stretch code, which exceeds the state code for energy compliance.
Okay,
Will the proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies or be public wastewater treatment utilities?
no. This goes to,
Remember, it's not only no, it's if it's no or just a small
Small.
impact, small impact.
I don't think an extra house will impact the 100 million gallon sewage treatment plant down at Yonkers.
Will the proposed action impair the character and quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
No.
Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources such as wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna?
For the record, myself and Ed Marin and Susan Nolan walked the site to check for water bodies and groundwater and wetlands. No,
Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems?
no.
And will it create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
No.
Okay, so then, since you answered no to all of those, it'll be a negative declaration, and I'll include that in the resolution. Preliminary subdivision approval, which will also have conditions about returning the ground to taking everything down, making the ground all grass, and a time limit. Hopefully they'll have a demolition schedule. If not, the board can come up with what they think is a reasonable end date.
Yeah, and I presume that Patty, there's going to be some form of fencing.
Well, for the subdivision, probably no. For the construction, yes.
Because remember, you're not gonna get your plat signed until the thing is
Right.
demolished.
So do you want me to show on the site plan, like I can do a different sheet that shows temporary construction fencing to protect the site during demolition?
Yes,
And an Andy track and all, okay, I'll do that.
Why
and about tracking mud out of the site.
Right.
Patty, do a separate plan that shows. Do it by site development plan approval for the demolition. So show the staging area, show the wetlands, the silt fence details, all that stuff.
Don't, however, call it site development.
Demo plan, demo plan.
Demo plan, yes, and no wetlands, Ed.
Mr. Chair, which one?
Did your consultant figure that out?
I checked with the building inspector, he advised me.
You gotta show the silt fences too.
Show the silt fence, the tree protection.
Yeah, I know that I'm good with that, so.
That's what I meant by site development plan approval, just, but demo only.
Well, I'll refer to it as a site clearance plan.
Okay.
So it's, yeah, so it's clear.
Construction access, construction tracking pad.
Yep.
Dust, all the dust control notes. This way it can flip into being the building permit application for the demolition.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, one question on the, for next month. We'll have all the documents into you timely and the condition, we understand the conditions, and we'll read them when the resolution is there, but we have the 2-lot subdivision. If we could do this quicker, if, since it's only 2 lots, to have the preliminary and the final on the same evening considered by your board with the conditions in it and understanding that the plat will not be signed until Ed and his team are satisfied.
Yeah,
I'll
it'd be
do.
nice, more efficient, but I think the way the code reads, you have to have notice,
Okay.
separate notice for each.
I defer to counsel. And she said what she said.
I mean, we had notice for tonight for the preliminary.
Right.
I believe that was published notice. Let me look at it again. I mean, if the board,
Okay.
if the board would just assume do that, I could see whether, having a notice that says that the hearing is gonna be on preliminary and, final subdivision approval, whether that would meet the code. I could take a look at it.
Right, and
If the
we,
board do that.
and
I'm
we-
not-
we-
I'm
we
not
can-
talking to you, I'm talking to the board, if the board's comfortable with that.
right,
Anybody?
and I'm just saying, if you can let me know, I'll certainly do the mailing.
Hold on a second, Patty, we're trying to discuss this. If you don't want
Okay.
us to discuss.
No, go ahead.
No.
Can you just please review what you just said?
Yeah. Under our code, you have a notice and public hearing on the preliminary.
Preliminary.
And then you have a notice and public hearing on the final. So the thing is, we did have the notice tonight on the preliminary. And the question is whether if the notice goes in for January meeting and says it's for preliminary and final subdivision approval, whether that would meet the code. I think, I would have to, I'd have to look at, our code provisions. I know it's okay under the state subdivision law. It's not, I have to double check our code. But only if the board's comfortable with that, I can do it. Well, I could do that. But if you just assume have it in January and also February, let's do that.
I mean, I agree with what you're saying, and I think it still gives people an opportunity to come here, the public an opportunity to come here.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's public here tonight. on it,
So I think there's nothing's final until we vote at that meeting, but you would be giving them, to me, that's giving proper notice.
I'm not sure what your answer was. Are you saying,
Yes, I agree with Mary Ann's proposal to do preliminary and final.
oh, okay,
Same meeting.
if it's legal,
Yes,
I will defer to legal.
Yeah.
Make sure it's legal.
Yeah.
Okay, Dan.
I agree if it's legal, but we
Yeah,
move
I do
forward.
too. Mike,
I agree.
Mike, we'll go.
No problems.
Okay, I'll take a look.
So if you do your job right. And if it's legal. We'll likely, not guaranteeing anything because things change. Go with it.
Yeah, can I ask one question?
Not yet, we're still internally discussing.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's what.
Marianne, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, Patty.
Normally when we're doing this, the plat map gets, drawn and you've always asked in the past to see it at preliminary. I can't have a survey for the plat map that shows the building's gone by the surveyor sealed. So what I'm gonna do is ask him to prepare the plat map showing the buildings removed, but the understanding that he wouldn't be signing that until after the buildings have been taken down.
Well, there's no question, I'm not signing the plat until.
Right.
We're satisfied, you complied with all the conditions, and there's a beautiful grassy area there instead of what we're looking at.
Good,
That works fine.
thank you.
Anybody comment board?
when you
Go ahead.
said grassy area, do you expect them to actually plant grass?
Well, for two reasons. Turning it to grade, and without the grass, you're going to get erosion,
Right,
and the soil will run down to the tracks. And there's a culvert under the tracks into the Hudson River to carry the mud that the grass would prevent.
okay, but it can be
Seed
wild
like
grass.
It doesn't have to be Kentucky bluegrass, it could be rye.
Yeah, they also, Stein Schneider also said that they were gonna grass. So.
Right.
Yep.
Any other questions, board, only?
No question.
Ed?
No, I just warning the board that, there may be changes next month in the resolution and that might push it a month.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure. once you see this document, you might want to make changes. Once I
I'm
see,
gonna propose.
if I see the demolition plan, there might be comments.
I just recognizing that we're noticing for both preliminary and
Yeah,
final, that doesn't mean.
No, I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that's.
I'm gonna ask Mary Ann, normally we hear the resolution for the first time at the meeting. We could see the resolution
Sure.
before the meeting. The whole board see.
Well, you'll see,
That's what I did.
it'll be,
I'll see Con, I saw
Yeah.
that. Yeah. I'm gonna ask Darius, make sure you, or if, are you the one publishing the notice?
We can do that, yes, sure.
Whoever's doing the notice, make sure you run, check on the timing. I'm not gonna do the timing, but just make sure that I'm comfortable with the way it's noticed.
Sure, and I'll send you a draft.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything further on presentation?
No.
That sounds like no.
No, sorry.
Sarah, any Zoom public?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay, I know we have people in the audience who I'm sure are going to speak, so we now open it to the public sitting in the room. Yeah, now keep in mind, this is a subdivision, there's no construction
Exactly.
involved.
Exactly.
There's no footprints being approved. This is, as Mike said at the last meeting, maybe we can repeat it, it's something a property owner has by right, I'm wording this correctly, to have a right to subdivide the property, assuming it's big enough and it meets all the criteria of water and sewer.
Right, so Steve Hallowell, 29 Half Moon Lane. We are the carriage house on the east side of Half Moon at the corner of Hendrick North. So the Malhotra property sits slightly to the north of us, is part of our view shed. We are here recognizing that the subdivision by the Malhotras is completely possible, acceptable. The concern we want to raise is that procedurally, we think there have been some irregularities at this point, and also that the information on which the decision about the future use of the property may be based on inaccurate information. You may recall from the last meeting that there was a 90-page document that we were noticed on and asked to work through, and we didn't receive notice of this meeting, by the way. I don't know if that's a violation of any procedures. But we worked through that 90-page document only to have it removed at the moment of the meeting, and the hypothetical map that Patty put together was put up as the subject of discussion. With the resubmission for the application for the subdivision, the same material that was presented at the last meeting is the backup to a 2-page letter. And in that, there's a set of things that we don't think accurately describe the current building, and yet that is mirrored for the description of the hypothetical structures that would go in going forward. So we're at a point where we want to be sure that whatever happens at the next stage, we are clear that both procedures have been followed so that we understand the implications, and that whatever the structures are that then come under review aren't based on a false or inaccurate rendering of what the current structure involves. We would like to understand, for example, in the old description and what's used as the basis for the new structures, the building's described as a 2.5-story structure. I don't understand what a half story is, but it looks from any pictures that are part of the application like there are full 3 stories there. The building has been described as being 35 feet or 40 feet, depending on some grade issues, because there apparently are several different ways you can measure it. Mr. Steinschneider's been quoted in the past as saying the building's actually about 45 feet tall. So if that structure is going to be used as the reference point for what goes in twice.
No.
Where there's currently one building.
No, it's not.
Can I just finish? That would allow buildings to be put in that would be massive in a way that we don't think is appropriate. So that's one consideration. The other point we'd like to raise is that we are currently looking at 50 Half Moon Lane, a structure that you approved and which has a massive presence on our street, and which I admit we dropped the ball on. We didn't look at that as it was going in, not anticipating a structure of that scale on that property. And if the current structure is acquired by the same people that developed 50 Half Moon Lane, I think we would then be in a situation where this would have to be reclassified as a new lot development, because we would be within 1,000 feet of the structure that's just gone in at 50 Half Moon Lane. In the documents, Darius Shafazada has said that the sale of the property is contingent on the third party being satisfied that the subdivision has been approved. If in fact we're looking at the possibility of two structures that are similar in scale and mass to what has just been built at 50 Half Moon Lane, then you're changing the character of our neighborhood completely. There are 5 structures on the riverside, on the west side of Half Moon Lane. One of them is now more like contemporary structures that we've seen going up at Greystone or behind the high school. And if we're going to have 2 more like that on the street, we would have 3 out of the 6 structures, which we think ends the historical character of our neighborhood. So we're asking you to take a very, very measured approach. And I'd like to ask that Ed Marin enter that house. Ed said at the last meeting he has never been allowed to enter that premise to confirm anything in terms of the development that's taken place. We'd like, before that structure comes down, for Ed or someone who is an independent party to take measurements to tell us what exactly is the accurate description. Is it a 2.5-story house? Is it 35 feet tall, or is it 40 feet tall? Is it 45 feet tall? And if that's going to be used as a reference point for the structures going forward, we're going to have that very, very carefully defined. It's our view shed, it's our neighborhood, it's the integrity of one part of this beautiful town. So unless, and if you have anything further you want to say.
Well, let me address some of the things you said. The template for what might be approved, is the current code. And the current code, I believe, is 35 feet high. And let me finish. It's not taking a measurement of the existing house that's coming down has no bearing, in my mind, of what's might be built there. And as I said, we made it clear that the footprints that are shown for demonstration purposes. Those footprints are not being locked in by this. Let me finish.
Okay.
And because the footprints may change depending on the footprints need to be approved, not these footprints, based on view preservation issues. So we're not approving in this approval anything about view sheds or view corridors. This does not include anything about height or mass or bulk. And if you're interested in 50, they're up next. I invite you to stay for the next meeting. Because it's going to be interesting.
The next application.
The next application. Yeah, I meant the next, not the next meeting. Ed, you had something to say?
First, I'd love to say, but we'll say one thing at a time. Explain to them why there's a footprint shown on the plat,
Well, just to show that,
the health department.
well, that it can comply, and then the health department also has to see, they have to have that information
So
on there.
this is theoretical.
To get approved.
To get it approved from the health department, you have to show that a building can be built on. And so.
But every specification for that building is identical to the
So-
existing building.
No,
Which is grossly.
Let me answer that next one. So the next one is, this board and I do not have,
No, I'm not.
oh. What about me? This board and I do not have the authority to do anything other than to approve within the code. There is no code that says we follow what was there. We don't have the authority to follow what was there. They don't have the authority to follow what was there. There is a zoning board of appeals, which is a different issue. We'll get into that with the one down the street. So there is no quid pro quo, there's no theory, there's no thought that they can build to what was there.
There is precedent.
There is not
Precedent came up
something
on
else.
the,
No, please.
the Maple Street.
No, it's
I'm-
like.
I'm letting you finish. I'm
It's
just-
like.
This is a speak one at a time. We let you speak without interruption, but Mr. Naris.
This is a subdivision, it's not a knockdown.
Right.
Although it has the appearance of a knockdown is to acquire a subdivision. So it's a subdivision, a knockdown. Well, that discussion should follow the rules as well. But an applicant's welcome to come in and do anything they want, but this board can't approve something that exceeds the code that's in the writing today.
Mhm.
There's nobody can, I can't either. You can go to, an applicant can go to the zoning board of appeals, and that's. It's very hard to, brand new house should always meet the code. Unless there's a hardship of a steep slope, you know, an odd shaped lot, these are standard lots.
Yeah, and let me, you talk about knockdowns. We had
This is not a knockdown.
a couple of knockdowns. Well, this one's not.
Yeah.
A couple of knockdowns where the house was knocked down and a new one built. The new house that was built or proposed to be built had to meet code. I mean, the one on Fargo, he was like 6 inches into the aqueduct. We said, no. It's a new house, you meet the code. And they did. So, you know, what was there, the previous house that was there is coming down, doesn't mean what's built can not meet code. It has to meet code.
These are two separate lots also.
Yeah.
So they're two
Mr.
separate
Chair,
lots. So it's- And that's why Patty was saying that the surveyor he can't stamp the survey, he can't stamp the plat, stamp it now because the structures can't be on there because it can't exist. He can't say it's gonna be demoed. He can't propose stuff.
I have every confidence in your process and your commitment to following code. I just know that if the information that we've seen seems to have serious flaws in it, that we may not, I mean, you're going on the basis of the information supplied by every architect who speaks to you tonight. This is the square footage. This is the coverage ratio for the whole neighborhood. This is where there are.
None of that's not true.
It's all reviewed by
Or
staff.
reviewed by,
It's all verified by staff.
Ed Marin has not been allowed in that house once in its entire, and it's 90% over covered.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I think there's other people that want to
Well,
speak.
let me just explain this, because I explained it last month and I got interrupted by the resident. The code at the time of this construction allowed for that height to be there. It was taken from a measurement of an average grade to an average roof height. The code today is taken from the lowest grade of the periphery to the highest point of the main roof. It's a very different code. It's substantially more restrictive. So we'll just start with that one code, because that's a very easy one for me to explain to everybody. So that house can be 52, almost 53 feet in the old code, depending on the grades, where the new one can only be 35 if you take it from the highest to the lowest. That was just one code change, and there's just many. There wasn't an FAR code at the time this was built, a floor area ratio, so it could be massively large.
Can I ask what a half story is?
Half story, the definition hasn't changed much, but it's basically a set height of the roof, ceiling height, for no more than half the floor below, and that. looks
And
like-
is that an accurate description of the existing house?
I don't
Two and a
have
half
personal
stories?
knowledge of it, but it appears to be.
It is.
Let's hold on over there. The half story doesn't commit to over 35, still has to be 35
It's
feet.
35 feet.
Yeah, and to be clear, you mentioned the
And half-story code has changed
from
significantly.
the lowest point. I
Lowest
think it
point.
also says the original lowest.
Yeah.
point.
So you can't
that
fill it up and
You
make it
can't
bigger.
bring fill in and then say, oh, I got 5 feet of fill, I can go 5 feet higher.
The new height code is very restrictive, very detailed.
Yeah.
Please, please read it and just understand that
Okay.
there's
I'll come back
very,
and get it.
it's online, you don't have to
Okay.
come see me. You're welcome to see me, but I'm never there, I'm out in the field, but that house was built when the codes were very relaxed. Where the codes were like everyone else's codes, they weren't Irvington's codes. Now Irvington has taken their codes, they've made them what Irvington wants them to be.
Yeah.
So it's a very different code now. So for you to say it doesn't meet code, it doesn't have to meet code, it has to meet code at the time of construction. Otherwise, we go knocking on your door, taking off your living room.
All right, hold on, everybody. Darius, I believe, wanted to say something. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, these are all site plan issues, Mr. Chair, and they're not relevant to the subdivision, and the existing house has no bearing on anything. I think Ed analyzed it very well. Just keep going over the same things about site plan and the existing house that's irrelevant to the subdivision. Once they come in for site plan, this will all be discussed by your board. I don't know if we need to discuss it anymore tonight, just my 2 cents.
Darius, are you prepared to release the name of the third party whose the sale is contingent on the subdivision?
Caesar.
No,
That's
Did you know him?
that's immaterial. We're approving a subdivision. We're not approving the buyer or seller.
Your comments have to be addressed to the board, not to.
Okay.
All right, I think you had your say, and we're ready for our next.
I just wanted to make one comment. You said that you didn't feel that you were noticed properly for this. I do see evidence of your neighborhood being noticed in the submission. So I don't know if there's anything we can do to ensure that you get that notice.
They usually come as certified
Right,
letters,
yeah,
right?
and it shows it's stamped USPS, your name and address are on there with the other residents.
Well, maybe my memory has lapsed, but I don't recall.
Yeah,
receiving
no longer
any-
has.
I do think that's very important that the public does get proper notice. So we do, it is part of the application.
Any other comment? We have the next citizen, please.
Yes, I'm at 10 Hapman Lane.
Say it into the mic.
10 Hapman Lane. My name is Rick Passoff. I got notice for the meeting prior to this, but I didn't get notice for this meeting. So I don't know if we're just confused about what, and I live right across the street from the house. I think, just to clarify one issue, in what's submitted here, I'd like to ask Patty to go and
Yes.
show us the picture of the back of the existing house. So it's in the submission that we're looking at now. Could Patty take us to that picture?
Is that okay with you, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead. Like I said, myself and Susan Nolan and Ed Marin walked the back of the site.
So, okay, yeah, so as you can see here, I say this is first story. I say that's the second.
I don't know what's pertinent about this. The house is coming down. Listen,
let me.
no, I'm not.
No,
Because it's getting late. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, but
We're not
this is
gonna-
submitted, no, listen to me for a second.
I don't want. to.
I'm not gonna lie.
I heard the first.
It's got nothing to do with what he said, and I'm gonna,
You're bringing.
no,
up
I'm
material
not.
About a house that's.
I am not. I'm bringing up a material about what is in this submission and how they've described the house across the street from me. And they're describing this house as two, this is the description of the
You need to
existing
speak into the
house.
microphone for the transcriber. I'm so
This
sorry.
is
You
being
can take it with
described,
you.
it is a house across the street from me, and that is being described to me as 2.5 stories in this current submission. And so my only question is, what is the definition of a half a story? Is that, as it is described in this submission, nothing to do with what's going to be built or anything else? I'm just saying, when I read a document and somebody says, that is a 2.5 story house, I'd like to know what the Village of Irvington thinks a half story is. And you described a half story as in relation to the prior 2 stories and less than either of those stories. If we were to measure this I believe it's not. And the only bearing on that is, what does the village of Irvington describe a house story to be? That's number one. The second.
What does that have to do?
The integrity of the information.
We need.
Let me get the question out, okay? What does that have to do with whether or not we subdivide this property and it shows that there's a hypothetical buildable house on it?
It only has to do with this. We don't know what a definition of a half story.
Why do you don't need to?
Why not? I live here and you're gonna build a house across.
Because it's in the code.
All right, then what is it in the code? What is it in the
He
code?
just explained it.
But it's also not. So explain it to me again.
It's 9:40. We have a bunch of other things and you're
bringing up
taking
this-
up, we went through this last
No,
time.
no, you didn't.
Yes, you did. You
Okay, then
complained
can somebody-
about- Let me get this out.
Just somebody describe to me what's the definition of a half story in the code?
Sir, you're talking about a house that's coming down and has absolutely no bearing. We're gonna fight over
Then
the height of
here's-
a house. No,
I skip over that point.
You're fighting over a house that's coming down, or going on and on about a house that's coming down. It has absolutely no bearing on the subdivision that we're looking at. It has no bearing on what's going to be built, because that's subject to a whole bunch of meetings with view preservation. I don't really care what this house looks like. It could have been 20 stories. It's coming down.
And what?
No, you had your chance and you're not up to mic.
So then, putting that aside, the other question I just wanted to follow up on is, if there is a requirement that somebody has to prospectively state that they have an interest in a property that's 1,000 feet from theirs, and they are contriving to put in front of the planning board a process for an out of process approval of a subdivision so that they don't have to make that disclosure, is that the way you want to allow properties to be developed in the village?
I didn't understand the question.
I'll re-
Excuse me, perhaps council can answer that.
I don't understand the question.
But then I'll repeat it. If it is the case that the person who is buying the lot to tear down the house and build 2 lots already owns a lot on the house, on the street, and if they were the owner of the current property, they would have to declare what they also own. And if they were asking for a subdivision within 1,000 feet of a property they already owned, they might have to go through a different approval process. So if the board is being asked to conditionally approve a tear down so that the application is from the current owner who doesn't have to declare an interest in a property 1,000 feet away, it sounds like they might be subverting a process that is already in the code. That, I think, was Steve Halliwell's question. And that's why he asked, why are we going through this extra step? Is it simply so that the new owner doesn't have to declare that they already have an interest 1,000 feet away? And in asking for subdivision under those conditions, would have to go through a different set of approval processes? I think that's a fair question.
No, I think the one answer is, I think one answer is this application is by the current owner.
Well,
the next application to build may be by the new owner of property. And so you have to disclose who the owners are.
No,
And
no.
we'll deal with it at the time.
In the proposal that you're looking at today, there is a requirement for you to state prospectively, if you have an interest in a property 1,000 feet from what you're asking to be subdivided, because that would expose you to a different approval process.
This
So
owner does not.
But what I'm suggesting to you, Mike, is that if you are.
It doesn't subject you to a different approval process. They do ask that question, which this guy doesn't own anything within 100 feet, but it's not a different
What
approval
would be the
process.
consequence if I owned a
I'm
house?
sure, I actually never understood why that question was in there. It's not, it's always been on the
If it has
form.
no, if it has no bearing.
Yeah.
But my only question would be, if it did have a bearing, and you, the board, were being asked for an out of process approval, which you're being asked for, because your process. I'll restate it again. You had said at the last meeting that the normal process of approving a subdivision is for any variance on the property to be cured. So cure the variance, come back and ask.
That's correct. They're tearing down the house to cure the variance.
They're
Cure the,
But they're.
what was the word? Non-conform.
And so the question is, are they doing it in a way so that they can avoid the new owner disclosing an interest already on the block that would require some different approval?
I'll leave that to come.
I just would like to know what you all are afraid of, because that's what I'm sensing, that you have fear of some unknown, and I'm just wondering what that is.
Well, it's really simple. Across the street from us is a house that's a 91% over variance. We don't know how it got there. That's why we're very sensitive to what is the description of that existing house in the current document. By describing it as 2.5 stories, it seems to describe it as compliant with whatever definition of a half story is in the village. We find that very confusing because if
So you
that
don't
is,
trust the whole application
Right,
is what you're
right.
saying.
well, what we're just wondering how this happened, and we'd like to make sure that whatever happens next.
I think the building inspector would inform you about the evolution of the codes that today, if that house were an application, it wouldn't get built.
But I guess my question still hasn't been answered. Today, what's the definition of a half story in the code?
Yeah. Available on the code.
Why don't you just read it?
I'd just like to read it.
Let the record show the citizen is reading the.
Unless the ceiling height exceeds 4 feet above the lowest elevation of the construction. So this sort of implies that it's.
That's.
Honestly, you probably gotta go sit down, you
That's
gotta
the
go
story
through this
code.
whole thing.
That's the story code.
It's like-
That's not the half story code you just quoted. That's the story code. You know, I see the problem.
It's all right.
I mean, as
You read the story code.
I just want you to know that
Hold it, we're all talking at once, one at a time.
This-
Lori has the floor.
this board takes new construction very seriously. I went through the process myself. I sit on this board because I recognize the importance for the people who live on the streets and in the village. I also recognize the importance for people that buy a piece of property that they want to build on. And height is something that this board takes incredibly seriously. So, you know, you will come and be noticed for any meetings post subdivision and during the planning and approval process.
Right, in the interim, you may want to focus on the application at hand right now, which is the deconstruction or demolition of what's there, and the scheduling of what's there, the fencing of what's there, all of which is going to be submitted. And you're focusing on a process that's not even here before, which is what's going to be built. And that's not the subject of what we're doing today. The subject of what we're doing today is making approval for a subdivision, which requires demolition of everything that's on the property, returning it to grade and grass. And that's what you, well, if you're interested in what we're doing today, I would, if I were living there, I would question that whole process. There's a gentleman in the back of the room. That's you. Do you have any comments or any?
No,
he's
they're
here.
here on another application.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
I just like to just say, Anne Howell.
Now, say it into the mic.
Anne Howell, 29 Half Moon Lane. So to be honest, because communities have rumors as well. We have a monster of a building that has been put up on our street. Our carriage house, coach house, built in 1867. The house that we're talking about was the house for our coach house. There is a sense of history and historic preservation that we are keenly aware of in terms of the beauty and the future beauty of our neighborhood and Irvington. And the papers that have been presented, I'm just questioning the veracity of some of the information in what was presented. So I'm scared, rumor mill again, that monstrosity is going to be purchased. The people who built that huge house, that they may be, we have heard, the people who will do the two new houses.
which could be also, please, I know that you're gonna have to opine, and I know that, you know, so that there'll be limits, and I really have lived here for a long time. I love this town, village. I trust this village. It has helped us tremendously as we've built, but it just doesn't feel quite. It's not passing a smell test, not you, but what we see and what we're hearing in terms of what the future can bring to that property. And that would be painful for us as owners of the coach house. You know, the bottom floor, which is going to be demolished of this, of the Malhotra house, that bottom area, which was cut off, the top of the house that was originally there was cut off years ago, but the bottom area is part of the original historic house that was there for our coach house. So there's just more to it. I don't want us to be unfair. We really, really, really appreciate all that you put into this. And we don't want to see ourselves as adversarial. We just are hearing things. And boy, oh boy, that big thing has changed our street.
Well, I appreciate your concern, and the forum for that concern is if they come in to build something, it's going to be site approvals, code reviews, site view preservation consideration. We had one view consideration up on Fargo that took 6 or 7 meetings, and they had several dozen architectural renditions. And it was eventually approved with several corrections that minimized. Can't eliminate, the code says minimize view, and we approved it, and the gentleman who went through all that sold the property and never built. It's still sitting there.
I know which house. Yeah.
Yeah, in any event,
Our son lives on Clark.
that's where we're at, and I appreciate your concerns, and come back if there's coming someday site approval process with something we can actually see as opposed to something that's not going to be there anymore. Okay, Darius, you have anything else to add?
No, nothing, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Sarah, anything? Any public on Zoom?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Lori and company, do we have anything else to add?
No, thank you.
Ed, anything? Marianne? Doug? Okay, we're done. See you next time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I invite the people that are here now to express their concern with the house at Tippy. It's the next item on the planning board. Okay, the scheduled next one was 9 Meadow Way, and as I spoke at the beginning of the meeting, it was decided to address the floodplain offline as opposed to going through the gymnastics of what's complying. So the next item is number 8, 2021-20. It's a revision at 50 Half Moon Lane.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board and staff. Brad Schwartz from the law firm of Zarin Steinmetz, representing the applicant. Joined tonight by Tassos, the project architect, Adam, project landscape architect, my colleague Casey Brenner, who you all know, who's been assisting me on this application. So we're here tonight for an application
before you start, I'd like to make some suggestions at what direction you should go in your presentation.
Okay.
The reason for, one of the reasons for the coverage in FAR is to make the evaluation of bulk and mass more objective and analytical. And if you had asked for the coverage you're asking for now, when we were approving this in the first place, the house would have been smaller. Thus, the bulk and mass of the house would have been smaller, because the coverage you're asking for now would have had to be swapped house size to get the coverage you want now. So now that your house is there, and I don't expect you're going to tear the house, pieces of the house down to reduce the coverage of the house to get the coverage that you want for the pool and whatever else you're asking for. So your presentation to be tonight should be to convince us why we should approve what you want now, something which we would have never approved if you hadn't asked for it in the first place. So with that said, you're on.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And then look, I certainly appreciate you framing the issue in that manner. As you know, our firm was not involved at the time of the application a couple of years ago, but we certainly are familiar with the prior proceedings. We've been brought up to speed. So we are here tonight mindful.
Hold on 1 second. I just had another thought. And because you didn't remember it last time,
yeah,
I even specifically asked during the review of this site, I asked, why isn't there a patio for the pool? And the answer was, we're going to use the grass as a sitting area. So was that knowingly a lie or knowingly being stupid? I have to refrain from saying what I really think, but go ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman, look, I asked the same exact questions when I first got involved in this matter. I expected it from you and your board, and I had the same curiosity. What went on? What happened? And Tassos is on the screen, was part of that prior application, as was Adam from Inside Engineering. And my understanding is that at that time, yes, there was focus on the house. They actually came in with a much larger ask. And over the course of that application, the house and backyard improvements, everything kept shrinking in order to comply with the coverage. They were anxious during COVID to complete that application, pull a permit. They were told comply with coverage. That's what they did. They revised the application to comply. Again, it was during COVID. They wanted to pull a permit and get going with construction and move in as quick as they could. Now, fast forward, as construction is nearing completion, they're now realizing, wait a second, there are some improvements that would make their use and enjoyment and the functionality and the aesthetics of the site more enjoyable, more beneficial, as well as an enhancement for the aesthetics of the block with the change in the fence along the site frontage. So I don't think it was part of a grand master scheme a couple of years ago. Stupidity, maybe going too far. If I was involved at the time, could we have pushed and asked for some of the backyard improvements that are being asked for now? Of course. I wish I could rewind the clock and be part of the team 2 years ago, but I wasn't. So we're asking your board, yes, mindful of the statements that were made during the prior proceedings, to at least hear us out, entertain our asks for each of these different improvements. There's a reason for each one of them. They're not vertical. We're not adding to the mass of the house. We're not changing height or footprint. These are all at grade, horizontal site improvements. Yes, there's a retaining wall and again, the fence in the front, but those are, minor vertical improvements. Everything is predominantly at grade, no visual impacts, largely in the backyard on an oversized lot, more than 2 times the minimum lot size, 1 acre in this district. So my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, if we could go one by one and hear us out on the rationale for each of these, again, mindful of the history. We came in with a plan that we think is what's minimally required to allow our clients to enjoy the use of their property. We didn't want to come in and ask for the moon and try to negotiate over the course of several months. We pushed our team, and we've been looking at this for a little while again to come in with something that we think is fair and reasonable given the size and scale of the overall property. So Tassos, if you want to start going sort of one by one, and my suggestion, Tassos, why don't we start with the change in the fence along the property frontage?
Right. Before you go, let me get back to my sense of mass and bulk. The mass and bulk of this building would have been less if you asked for what you're asking now, asked for it then. And that's a big deal. Now, prefixing the fence, we enthusiastically approved the fence that's there. That's the fence that you proposed back then. I know you weren't involved in it, but
yep.
In order to add the coverage, it's going to have to be a benefit to the community and a benefit to the village to change what we already approved. And there is a problem with the proposal, aside from the fact that it's coverage, that there's the linden tree in the corner, and the roots of that tree would be adversely impacted by a stone wall that you're proposing. So I don't even know if we agree to the coverage, if you can build it without it killing the linden tree, which we're not going to allow.
So let's stay there then for a second, Mr. Chairman. Adam, do you have a thought on that?
Sure. Yeah, we got the comments from Ms. Nolan relative to the needing a detail for the wall, and for taking a look, or actually adding a note. The request was to add a note that the digging for that wall be hand dug, not by machinery, and we're certainly happy to provide that detail and that note. I did take a quick look. There was a lot of analysis in the initial application of tree protection. I did take a quick look at it. Of course, we'll take a closer look at it before our next submission. But I did take a quick look at the critical root zone. I think there's a good possibility that it will not have a severe enough impact to say that tree would not survive. But we'll certainly provide that detail, that note, and that analysis with our next submission.
Okay, if you could do that, you still have to get past how much better aesthetically to the village is what you're proposing over what we already enthusiastically, I might add, approved the first time.
So, Mr. Chairman, we have, let's stay there, Tassos. Let's go to what was approved, the wood and the stone. This is a subjective aesthetic question. Our clients think this stone is an enhancement, but let's show you both the before and after, and let's have a discussion.
Yes, this is the approved fence, and we prepared a number of different designs, as you remember, Mr. Chairman, for your review. There was never any question from our end that a stone wall with a fence would have been preferable. But as you said, we had coverage issues to worry about, and this wood fence kind of avoided that particular issue. What we're here to ask for is, again,
hold on a second. Oh, you just proved our point that you avoided something so you can make a bigger house, and now you're coming back to get what you wanted in the first place. You just proved our point. And as far as I'm concerned, you're not getting that fence.
Mr. Chairman, when I was going through this process, it was very challenging, as you might remember, and I did my best to comply with your criteria and the view overlay, the view protection overlay zone. We were very concerned about the height, as you may recall. We lowered the floor of the building into the ground in order to remove soil from the site and create a much lower ridge. That was our point. Now, we all have a job to do. My job was to satisfy my clients, and they needed a certain amount of space. They have a large family, and that's what that was a priority. The priority was to get them a usable house that they would enjoy with a large family. We initially, my purpose was to calculate the original coverage that was already there, the existing coverage, and try to fall below that coverage with a new plan. Through this process, you made it very clear, by the end of the process anyway, you made it very clear that we needed to be at 0% overzoning. And that created a lot of pressure on us to maintain the size of the house, but comply with 0% overzoning for coverage. That's how we got to this. So we're here today to ask that we are allowed to do some, to expand the coverage with items that would be on the ground, that would be basically not visible from anywhere on the street. And it's really an ask, and we can't demand anything. We're here to ask the board to consider what we're proposing and make a decision for us.
Well, two things. I happen to think the fence we approved looks better than that. And you admitted you went to the wood to avoid the coverage so you can make the house bigger.
Well, I'm not going to sit here.
Now we're stuck with the big house, and you want what you wanted in the first place, and it's just, it's something I can't live with. Okay, you can ask, but I don't have to accept it.
Mr. Chairman, I thought based on, I thought some other applications in the village.
Yes, we're stuck with a big house that met code and was the only reason it was approved. And the reason you had got the big house because you left out other coverage that you eventually are asking for, which is now. And we can't fix the big house unless you're going to tear something down. And I know you're not going to do that.
So again, I think with the stone, based on some other applications in the village, we thought that the village would prefer the stone over the wood. Again, it's an aesthetics. I'm sorry?
You thought wrong.
Look, if that's the case, then we hear your feedback. I mean, we have the wood approved. There will be a fence in the front. The stone base just counts as a structure, whereas the wood does not, or for coverage purposes. So, I'm sorry?
Listen, it has to be appreciably better than what we approved. Plus, you're asking for coverage that we would have never approved in the first place. So I'm troubled to approve something I wouldn't have approved in the first place.
And again, we make the ask because we thought it would be an aesthetic improvement. It's not the type of coverage that causes visual impact. We thought this would be the type of coverage that would, again, only make the block more aesthetically pleasing, improve the curb appeal, etc. So that's, like, I asked you to indulge us in the reasons for each of these requests. That's why we came in with the stone, thinking it was prettier and more attractive than the wood, and consistent with other stone bases elsewhere in the village.
Let's get the rest of the board. That's my opinion. Let's get the rest of the board opinion. Staying on the fence topic.
Yep.
Not on the fence. Talking about the fence. They're not on the fence. Lori.
I want to say something to the architect first. This house actually got approval very quickly. I remember going through the process with you, and many other new construction homes have taken much longer. So it was not an onerous process, in my opinion. I'm not going to lie. I like the new fence that you're showing, but I completely agree with Caesar that you're trying to take advantage of the process, and that if you had wanted this fence from the get-go, you should have taken pieces of the house off in order to be able to incorporate it.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with you, Susan.
And Lori.
And Lori as well, yeah.
Mike Smith.
So what my memory is that one reason we liked the wooden fence better was that it seemed to be a continuation of the existing wood fence. I know there's a wood fence at 40 Half Moon, And we actually, there were some choices of wood fences. And and colors. We actually were debating what the color should be. So we just thought it would seem to be more natural. This to me seems out of character for everything else that's on Half Moon.
I'm in agreement with the rest of it.
Okay, I think,
Let's move on.
yeah, I was just gonna suggest moving on from the fence.
Let's move on. So look, if we just go from front to back, Tassos, then the next, again, no particular order other than just going from front to back. There's a 50-foot walkway in the front connecting the driveway to the front door.
Correct. Again, Mr. Chairman, because of the restrictive coverage, there was a very, very thin pathway from the porch to the driveway. And this shows about a 6-foot pathway from the front porch to the driveway, so that we don't have to be stepping on grass. The 36 square feet of the condensers to the north were already approved, so that was part of the original approval. The main, we also have on the south part of the property, we have a few walkways and some steps, and those were made, and the retaining wall. Now, the retaining wall doesn't have to be as long as it is shown necessarily, but we encountered, because of the fact we sunk the house, we depressed the house approximately 2.5 feet into the ground, the grading conditions on the south side became extreme. And we need to have some retaining walls in order to keep that soil from flooding up against the house. The main areas that are going to be we're proposing that would exceed the coverage by a significant amount is the pool and the patios on the back, and those were requested by the homeowners because they need to enjoy the backyard. As I'm sure you've seen, it's a very large backyard, and it's just an empty, an empty space without the ability to enjoy it. And that's really it. Those are the areas that we're asking for.
So let's show some of the pictures of the property.
Yes, Adam.
This is from the river. Oh, all right, so go to the top. That's fine. Go to the top.
Yeah, that's
Adam, walk us through it.
That's looking north. And the picture below shows the slope for which we're asking for a small retaining wall to retain that soil.
I just want to point out in this picture, you see, Adam, you're controlling the mouse, right? So the
Yeah.
home on that property to the south is much closer to Half Moon. So in terms of neighbor impacts, right? There's not a house on this side with windows looking into this backyard.
Right, and again, the reason for the steeper slope than we anticipated is that we pulled the house into the ground in order to lower the ridge and preserve the view.
And Tassos, why wasn't that change in grade known during the design, or just curious what happened?
Well, there were some irregularities with the survey, and there were some irregularities after we excavated with what we found at the edge of the property. There was a lot of construction there, like old foundations and such. It basically became very difficult to grade the site and guide the water around the house without creating some sort of retention there.
Scroll down, please, Adam.
Why don't you go over the numbers of the pool, the size of the pool?
Well, I'm not sure. So I'm not sure I need to see these pictures because I want to focus on the size of the pool, because to me the size of the pool is the same issue as the fence.
All right, let's go back up, Tassos, to the plan.
Okay? Because in order to have that size house, I'm assuming, you proposed a pool that was 32 by 18.
Yes.
Which.
Without a patio.
With no patio, because you said you were gonna use the grass. That's not my choice. That was the owner's choice. I'm assuming that it was the owner's choice to build a smaller pool with that size house in order to build that size house. To tell me that you now want to expand it from, I think, 32 by 18 is 582 square feet to 1,000 square feet and attribute that to a sun shelf, to me doesn't make sense. But you're almost doubling the size of the pool and adding to it a couple of the 400, the 240, the 240, which all should have been foreseen, if not already foreseen and just taken out by the time you get the submissions to us. I understand why you need a retaining wall. If there's a structural reason for the retaining wall, I don't have a problem with that personally. And 50 square feet, the walkway in the front doesn't bother me. What you're proposing now in the back does, for the same reason that the fence board.
Mike B. Mike Patruco.
Are we pulling the board?
Yeah.
And I agree with Mike, although I equate the 50-foot walkway in the front, to me is the same as the pool. I agree with you on the retaining wall. I assume Doug and whoever, somebody will
I'm not sure
verify if that.
I'm not sure you need a retaining wall. there.
I'm saying someone will verify whether or not it's needed, and if it's needed, then I don't have a problem.
One could say that the reason for the retaining wall is the pool was made much larger to the south.
So it was
You wouldn't need a retaining wall if the pool was where it was originally located in its original size. You may not need the retaining wall. One could say.
One could say.
May I add, the retaining wall,
Let me finish with the board here.
of course.
Lori, you got any further comments?
Well, no, I was gonna ask about I was going to ask Doug about the retaining wall. And then can you clarify, Ed, was the pool not placed where it was approved?
The pool's not in yet.
Oh, okay, so I
So if
see
you
what
look at
you're
the
saying.
original,
Okay.
if you go from plan to plan, you can see that the pool was much further north
Okay,
and much smaller.
okay.
Dan, you have anything to say about the pool?
Well, again, seems mysterious that all of a sudden they want to double the size of everything, same with the walkway. I mean, again, they should have built a smaller house and submitted what they wanted to do originally rather than circumvent the process.
If the numbers in your letter were correct, you're asking for, if they're correct, I have to verify with Doug, 29% over allowable, which in itself is questionable, just if this was a.
Mr. Chairman, can we stay on that for a second, please? And just, we also did a comparative analysis of the neighborhood that we would like to briefly just present, because that 29% is
That's
consistent.
not pertinent for a new house.
It was actually one thing that we say to everybody, that we expect new construction to meet code. That there's no reason why new construction can't meet code. And we said that on this application.
In fact, I don't think somebody in one of the letters, one of the neighbors wrote, and they said George Boyle. I don't think George Boyle was on the board.
He was on the board.
No, but I recall quoting George Boyle, saying you have to meet code and agreeing with George as a previous member. George was a previous member, and that's, if he were still on the board, that's what he would have said. And I agree with George.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, look, and this new home,
You're not listening.
I didn't hear you talking. Go
The
ahead.
neighborhood has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So if you want to go through it, it's getting late. If you want to spend that time,
Just like whoever comes in on 0 to 10, half moon, they're gonna come in and have to meet code. No, they're not gonna tell us that somebody else, as elsewhere could build 130%. They're gonna have to meet code.
So look, the policy of meeting code was met here. Yes, they chose to do it through the house. And right, that was a decision that was made at the time. It's been discussed at length now tonight. But yes, here we are now 2 years later, not part of again of some grand master scheme. They tried to comply. There is a process for getting variances, right? There are allowances made where code cannot be strictly met if there's a benefit to the applicant that doesn't negatively impact the environment. So we did look at the neighboring properties. They are all way over on coverage. We're actually at the lower end of the spectrum in terms of overages. This is actually the plan here. So if you look just to the neighbor to our north, 39%. Again, on a lot that's comparable in lot size. So I get it's late. We're not going to ask Adam to go through each one of these, but suffice to say,
Is the 39% the Mahaltra property?
no. This is 40 Half Moon right here.
Okay.
The subject properties here, the,
that
this
house-
is 40.
It's been there forever.
60.
You know, you made a comment that the doesn't affect the coverage for the pool and the patio. Currently doesn't affect the village or the street level site, but indirectly it does, because if it had been included in the first place, the house would have been smaller, and thus the street level view would have been less bulk. And so your statement that the pool doesn't affect the view from the street is while half true, it does reflectively reflect what's there now, because the view from the street would have been different if the pool had been asked for at the time, because the house would have been smaller. So I don't buy that argument. Go ahead.
I also think it's important, Brad, you should recognize that at least as to some of these things, the board specifically asked. I remember Caesar saying, don't you need a patio? And oh, no, we'll just sit on the grass. So, you know, there's a little bit, and you're talking about the same team here, other than the lawyers, you're talking about the same team here. So it's a little hard to,
Well, don't forget.
Yeah, look, Marianne, I hear you, and call it remorse, call it, second guessing, Monday morning quarterbacking, right? I think, so look, as it is now, they have a beautiful home. Yes, they have a pool that was approved with no patio. You all should know that the site currently has 324 square feet under current. So there is some room to work with currently. I guess, look, I would ask to cut to the chase on this. Is the board willing to indulge in some increase that we can then work with? We hear you loud and clear. We're not getting all this. We know it. We heard you. I wish I was part of the process 2 years ago. Given some of the rationale, a family with 4 children, girls all under the age of like 14, want to have some opportunity to make better use of the backyard space, again, on an oversized lot in this district. We could go back and I could ask the client to really hone in on what's most important and prioritize. But I guess it would be helpful to hear from the board if you would be willing to entertain some exceedance. And again, I understand in light of the history, but given where we are now, that respectfully, that's our ask of the board.
We don't like to deal in hypotheticals, and I'll leave it at that. Right now, it's so far over, and the result was a big house that met code, but only because this stuff was left out. And again, to say that the pool doesn't affect the village, it does, because we're stuck with a house that wouldn't have been there, or wouldn't have been there at the size that it is. And, if I reflect, this was massive when we first, there was a driveway that you could have landed a helicopter on in the first application. And that was all coverage that we cut out. And the architect agreed that he purposely didn't ask for the stone fence because he wanted a bigger house. Well, I can't stop you from asking or adjusting what you're asking for, but I think you heard what we had to say.
In light of the hour, I will simply say I appreciate the board's feedback, and we'll revisit the plan and see you again next year. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, we're not finished.
Yeah.
Sarah, any public? Don't go away.
We're here.
No,
We're here.
yes, somebody raising their hand to speak, Norman Christ.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Norman Christ, living at 60 Half Moon Lane, just to the south of the property that's being discussed. And I guess we would like to speak in favor of the retaining wall. The excavation was actually quite substantial. That picture you were seeing looking to the south that showed the steep slope that was eroding is a really steep slope. This is actually more than 10 feet in height and falls 10 feet in about 15. So this is actually a danger to the three large trees behind it. Their roots are exposed high up, and we would certainly all precautions to be taken to preserve those trees. They're about 60 feet high. They're certainly 60 or 70 years old, and it would be a shame to lose them. And right now there are exposed roots. So we would in fact like a somewhat higher retaining wall than 2 feet, something that was 5 or 6, and allowed the slope to be less and a larger fraction of the roots to be covered by the ground. We're certainly quite frightened that when the final grading is done, a lot of this soil that you see now will be removed, and our fence and the three trees will be in even greater danger of being eroded. So we're in favor of a retaining wall and a higher one.
Let me ask you, are the roots exposed because of the construction, or they were always exposed?
They were ripped up by the construction. They were covered by the previous grade that came literally straight out. So it's really fantastic, the job they've done lowering the house. And from the point of view of our property, this is really very nice. We're looking across way above their backyard and seeing a view to the north that we didn't see before. But the price is the excavation. It's very close to our property line, which it has exposed roots a lot. There's a 30-foot keep out around the linden tree that was being very carefully attended to, but these three trees were ignored because, of course, they're not actually on the property. They're about 6 feet in.
I will look into that. I will have our tree landscape person, architect, take a look at that. Thank you for the information. We'll certainly consider that after Suzanne Nolan looks at that.
That would be much appreciated.
Thank you. Sarah, anybody else on Zoom? Anybody here in person who would like to opine? No raising hands? Okay. I think we're done with this item, and you certainly have a modest uphill, less than modest uphill climb, and we'll see what you come up with next time. But keep in mind that the goal is to stay with zero over code for coverage. That's the goal. Whether we can get there, it's up to you.
Very good. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Still got two more. Told my wife 10 o'clock.
You blew that one out.
And Ed, you said 8 o'clock.
I did not.
Where are we? We did 50. Yeah, we're up at the top. Number 9. 2023-37, 4 Oak Street. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Brian.
You're a shield. All right, we're gonna take a few minutes break. Given the length that we're here, there's a need for a break. We'll be back at in 3 minutes.
He's not coming back. He's not coming back. I know this trick. It's the all the time. I'll take out the garbage. I'll be right back. Have a good night. Good night. I have to go. I gotta get lives. You're right. You're beside something. Sure. Said that they were reading that one better speakers.
Sit, you have to like
Small bridge.
to think about this.
Oh, it's easy.
Yeah, he's the end lot,
That's
right?
the last house.
Yeah, he's a
Chain link
gorgeous,
fence.
Yeah, so you can park there.
he's a gorgeous lot.
I'm into it.
Falling apart.
Yes, yes. What is it?
Yes.
We're still recording and broadcasting.
We're still recording, Susan. We're still
It's a
recording.
beautiful.
Oh, I'm,
Yeah.
Good. They can hear you.
oh, yeah. All right, thank you for your contributions. Careful of the fire trucks.
Yeah. Car accident on some side. It is around 72. Stick a pole.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Area. We have to check that he put the notice from first of October. But it's somewhere. It was from site plan approval, the October notice. Sorry, it's November 2nd, notice. This really she was before this, which is happening. So they didn't notice. For a preliminary. So we had to vote. But they only,
How are you
for sure.
No, I'm gonna tell, I'm gonna call him tomorrow to say that he has.
Try.
The notice can't just be published.
Means he could
Go
do
to
their,
the
it's
papers.
gonna press ball.
Maybe,
I kept thinking,
he didn't come to this month to put it.
So the notice in the submission is the same notice as the moment before.
I even asked him.
There's no there.
Yeah, I even asked him, but you know what?
This doesn't cover what he wants, but he said it covered.
Hey, John.
This notice, you can take.
Hello.
You got an earful so far tonight?
And it's-
I'm a little worn out and I've just been sitting here, guys. I don't know.
Very good.
We could just do it in the morning or something.
We may very well be in the morning.
Yeah.
We're waiting for them to return from the police station for appropriate needs.
No problem. I'm gonna get a glass of water.
Well, I don't know.
Like, do you have kids?
So, 9.
7 and 9.
Just one.
Oh, well, oh, 9.
Okay.
So is that, Main Street now?
Is that?
In Main Street?
He's in Dobbs.
Ah.
Where the
Oh, you
Like,
were the, yeah.
group,
know
like
that.
Irvington that goes to Dow schools.
You know what,
Yeah.
this is notice.
Which Caesar likes to give you American job.
I mean,
Right.
it says
It's a continuation of that notice.
Yep.
the following is a brief description of the application,
Very strange.
application
Okay.
approval. So I would say.
No,
there's
it's okay
no-
for the subdivision. but
And it wasn't.
But he was saying that this.
Okay.
You know, this was part of the reason I said that, is what he said.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean,
I'm just
Yeah,
like, that's.
I love
that's not
those.
true.
That's a lawyer's.
no, but yes, continue, no, but there was the notice. that
Right,
would
but not-
be-
not here.
Okay.
We're back.
I think that's probably.
Okay, well, and John's back. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. Back on the record.
I don't
I
want
know,
anything wrong.
I know.
All right, John.
It's fine.
What's with the S?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Caesar, I'll share
Denied.
screen, I'll share screen and jump right into it. If so,
Identify yourself first.
all right. John Malone, Ferguson Malone Architecture, representing the Coopers and the project at 4 Oak Street.
Let the record show that John is wearing an ascot.
Oh yeah, that I was cold in here. I don't have to wear that. That is silly. The office, I think they turned the heat off down here at night, so I'm freezing to death. So this project is for an addition that tries to address some deficits in this house on Oak Street, a small house, a relatively small house that is, I believe, 3 bedrooms, built, we think, in the 20s. Between the 20s and the 40s or something like that, stucco house. So to go to the plan quickly and just sort of describe the deficits that we're trying to address. On the first floor of the house, I'm going to zoom into that for you. There's a few things that are making it, less than suboptimal, as they say, for a growing family with elderly parents. Is there's no bathroom on the ground floor. The Cooper's parents are getting older and making the stairs and access to the bathroom, that's difficult. So one of the things that they're looking to do is add a powder room on the ground floor. The other thing, if you'll notice from the plan, is access to the house is primarily through the front door. And there is no mudroom-like condition. It basically, the door drops right into the living room. So, if you organize the living room around a fireplace and try to use that living room, there's a circulation path here, and there's this small closet that's been added. I think when the house was originally designed, there was just no closet. So the closet has has moved in the dining room. So they're trying to get a mudroom function, which is, more typical to a modern house, a place for the children to dump bags, to leave coats that isn't cluttering up the living room. And then the third thing that we're addressing is this kitchen. So the kitchen is very small, and one of the things that's making the kitchen functionality very difficult, first of all, it's very small, but also has a lot of entry points, right? So you have an entry point that is a few steps down to this recessed, it goes to the basement, but it also has a recessed egress out the back. That corner effectively becomes not usable for cabinetry. Then you need access to the dining room, so that limits what you can do in this line. And then this wall is access to the outside. I think all the access is necessary because there's no other way to get into the basement and from the interior of the house. So all of this led to a decision, or sort of basically analysis, that indicated you can't really resolve all of these functions without proposing an addition. So we're proposing an addition to the south of the building in this area on the first floor. And that addition also addresses a deficit on the second floor, which I'll just get to quickly. There's the primary, there's 2 potentially bedrooms upstairs. One is indicated as an office. It doesn't have a closet associated with it. I think it's being used as an office now, but it's effectively a 2-bedroom house, 2 children. And then has a shared bathroom. And the bathroom, the original bathroom, has been cut into 2 bathrooms. It provides a small primary bathroom with a dark, very small shower and a single sink. So the primary bathroom, again, is substandard. The shared bathroom is a workable size and in a relatively good location, but the primary is not very good, especially when you look at the primary bedroom and relationship to the amount of closet space that you have, right? The primary bedroom has only this very shallow 5-foot closet. So that's sort of a description of the deficits that we were looking to address. And then now to jump to the condition on site. This is the site plan of the area. And you'll see that we've shown the setbacks for the lot here, this line here. So it's one of those lots that's, it's a corner lot, so it has 2 fronts. So the available buildable area is this very small 10-foot wide strip here. So the majority of the house, the existing house, is already non-conforming in both front yards. And when we looked at where to propose the addition, we did our best to locate that addition at least partially within that buildable envelope. So the area here, we tried to keep it on the south side of the building in the area where there's availability. And then we tried to fit that all that function that we needed to add in this area here. That was sort of what drove the design. What we ended up with was a design that you see here, which provides the powder room, a little entry space, and uses this area, the dining room as a mudroom, separates the living room and this door, cleans that up, adds closet space here. The dining room, in order to accommodate the mudroom, gets moved to the west side, and the dining room functions a little bit better with the basement access. We've added a door to let the dining room be a little bit more formal and not actually be looking into the basement, but we think we can get that to work. And then the kitchen has been relocated to the addition here. And the kitchen has more counter space and some pantry space, which the other one couldn't accommodate. So that's our approach. And then on the second level, the area above the kitchen adds to the primary bedroom, it's a closet that you have to move through to get to the new primary bathroom, but it provides for the possibility of a closet and a primary bedroom. This whole second level is within the attic space of the second level. So the existing house is 2.5 stories. This addition is 1.5 stories. And we're trying to keep it low and secondary to the primary building for a few reasons, for aesthetic reasons, but also just to limit its impact rather than extending the whole house on 2.5 stories, which you might propose to add more space to the primary. We're just using that space in the gable above the attic. So if you see here, you'll see this is the front elevation that faces Oak Street. There's the existing house is here and the addition is proposed here. So you'll see it's sort of a 1.5 story addition here, and the dormer here is showing that, windows for the new primary bathroom space. And there's a porch giving you access to the mudroom here. This is the elevation that faces Station Road. So there's no change to that elevation. That's the same as the existing. And this is the south facing elevation. So you'll see the house in the background and the proposed 1.5 story addition here in the foreground. This is the, a door assembly into the kitchen. This is the door into the mudroom with a lower roof. The porch has a smaller, 7/6 opening, trying to keep the scale of it down. And then this you can see in the dotted line shows you the area of the bathroom above. So the bathroom is basically in the eave space above the house. So that's the proposal. Again, on the site. Oops, I'm sorry. What did I do? Why did it stuck? Oh, I forgot not responding. You guys can still hear me if you hold on a second. I'll see what's going on here.
John, you didn't do the west view?
Yeah, I'm sorry that my computer is freezing. It must be because it's been on all night.
Go back to the diagram of all the views.
Okay. Something's going on. Oh, I think that fixed it. Hold on. I think we're back. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the view that's facing west is a relatively blank view right now. We don't really have a reason to add windows into that wall. If there's a concern about that, we can adjust that. So this faces the west property line, and there's a dormer to provide for the bathroom above there. And again, you'll see the ridge of the new building is approximately 9 feet down from the ridge of the existing building. The reason there's no windows along that wall is if you go look quickly at the plan for the kitchen, we're showing oven, refrigerator, full height pantry along that wall. There is an opportunity to add a window, and we could switch the pantry and put counter space between this and probably pop a window in the center if people were concerned about the aesthetics of that. I think from a light perspective, this big door is facing south, so I don't think we're really concerned about it being well lit. But that's kind of the push there. And then in terms of site plan, what we're showing is there's very limited changes to the site. We are showing 2 HVAC units. One for the existing, I believe the existing ground floor has a unit here that would be relocated and replaced with a new unit. So that's for the existing ground floor, and then this other unit here would be for the addition. And then in terms of stormwater, we're showing a single unit. We did provide calculations for that, a single unit for the additional coverage. Rather than do soil testing, we're just showing it for the full storm amount. And again, getting that unit away from the building and away from the property line. This is really one of the only locations to put the stormwater. So that's where we located it. The stormwater system is designed to shed the roofs of the new addition. And then in terms of changes to the landscape, I think the only thing that we are proposing is potentially a new hedge in the front and some plantings around the existing building, but also the removal of an existing arborvitae hedge. So I think the arborvitae hedge, I don't think it's any protected trees in there. There's a fence there that's already a solid fence or a nearly solid fence. We see that we got a note from Suzanne Nolan about potential mitigation planting. I think the reason to remove the hedge is to make this area here a little less crowded in terms of planting. If there's a concern about screening being necessary, we can add that, but there's already a fence that's relatively solid in the back here. In terms of the effect on coverage and FAR, we will require a variance. Well, first of all, we'll require a variance for building in the front yard. Again, as we showed you in the site plan, there's really the only available area to build would be this, I think it's about 10 foot wide. I think it's a little less than 10 feet wide, about 8 foot wide section here. So we will need a variance to be building in the front yard. And then also we'll be asking for coverage and FAR variances. The coverage and FAR variances that we're asking for, we think are in line with the neighborhood. We have examples of other buildings that are similarly over, and we don't believe that this is out of character with the neighborhood. We did a zoning analysis that's relatively broad. And just to note, when we do our own projects, we do them accurately, and when we do the other houses on the zoning analysis, we do them very conservatively, meaning we err on the side of them being lower than what they probably actually are. And one of the things to point out about this house is that the attic is accessed by a stair. So the attic, we're counting our attic as 100%, which is almost 400 square feet. And also the garage building that's on this property doesn't have access currently for a car. You'd have to drive through a fence and across a lawn. So we're counting that as full FAR and not taking a garage deduction for that. So when we look at sizing FAR for the remainders of the property, since we don't have access to the interiors of these properties and don't know if they have a stair to the attic or whether their attic is finished, we typically count them as 50% the attic. So there's, potentially part of why the other properties aren't necessarily as high on FAR as what we're proposing is related to that. So even given that conservative reading, there are FARs that are, in the same range and higher than what we're showing, and same with color coverage. There are coverage numbers that are much higher than what we're showing and some that are lower.
Okay.
I think just quickly, other things in the project are replacement of there's a wood fence that they want to replace in kind. It's kind of rotting on its way out, so we're replacing that with a new wood fence around the perimeter. I'm not sure. I think that's really it.
Okay, a couple of comments. You said you're moving the AC. Isn't the AC in the, rear or side yard setback?
Yeah, it's
New AC.
it's a thin, it's like a Mitsu, there'd be two Mitsu units.
Yeah,
So
all right.
they're hanging a little bit out, those are drawn accurately, their size and their offset. It still seems like the right location for them.
Still needs a variance if it's in it. Yeah, you didn't mention you should mention the previous variances, like the generator and the air conditioner in the front or facing Station Road.
Right, there's an AC there and a generator here on the front
I
side.
think they had previous variances.
And it wasn't it wasn't referenced in your application.
Right.
And I too was wondering why you're removing the foliage on the property line. So,
This is a request from the client that we haven't dug into, and I'll dig into it more. And if there's any concern about it, I mean, in my estimate, I can ask Susan about her opinion, but I have a bad feeling generally about arborvitaes. I'm not that into them. They look kind of, just like a wall of green, and they're not that interesting. And there's one better plant here that is oh crap, I forgot the name of it, but it's like an ornamental pine on the corner, which is much nicer, that they are keeping, that we're leaving that. So I don't know if there's some other planting that would make more sense there that, would.
okay, we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, I will. I can look at that with them.
Two important items. The play area was not included in the coverage.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we should be doing with that. I mean, we're following the current code right now. They're just, TC Merritt's gives us this outline. There's a play structure there. That's all that's there. There's not a hardscape or anything.
Just include the play structure. It was installed before the code was in place for a front yard variance. So
front yard. Okay, all right, gotcha.
Yeah, no, all you need is coverage. It's not a front yard. It's not a variance for front yard because it was installed prior to the code.
But it counts as coverage.
But it counts as coverage.
But the new, we can talk about this offline. I must be misunderstanding the new building definition then, because it says that the play structures aren't buildings.
Yes, Caesar, I thought that took quite a while.
It's in the front.
Yeah, but it's in,
Oh, because.
if you use the new code, it's in the front yard setback, which is not allowed in the new code.
So it's less detrimental to just use the coverage.
Can't take part of one, part of the other. That's how, we did that on another application.
We did that someplace else,
Yeah. In the last.
90 Fargo,
Yeah.
which you were the architect.
But if you want to, if you want to use a new code, then it's a front yard variance.
Yeah, I think, I just wanted to be clear on that, because I think the reason we did it at Fargo is because the initial submission was before the code changed. So I thought that was why we needed to keep it in.
Get close to limit back. We can do that offline.
Yeah, let's do it. That's what I'm saying. It's too late. It's too late to talk about this. We can do it.
You're starting to lose.
Ed and I do it
One
offline.
more item we need to discuss.
It's a large item.
It's a large item. You're taking away the parking space and it looks like when I looked at it, that you wouldn't be, if you bought an Explorer or an Escalade, the rear bumper would be out in the street.
We got the note on that. There's a modification that I'll review with the client. I think we can take care of that. We have this porch that we're showing, the front entry porch is larger than it needs to be, and we can modify that and still make the design work and leave the existing parking space in place.
Okay.
And you need parking for 2 cars.
Two.
The code reads 1 though, Ed, for this zone.
Okay.
Well, that's something you need to discuss with Ed.
I'll do that offline too.
Yeah, we'll do it offline. We'll show it to you.
Just said too, in case you didn't hear.
No, we're gonna do it offline, Caesar.
Yeah. And lastly, you need to get into the rear wall facing the neighbor. I used this word before. It can be considered suffocating to the neighbor. So, some kind of even more so taking away the existing screening. So just try to address that.
Yeah, we can do that, and I think there is an opportunity for glass there, right, if it looks too blank, if there's a view from the other house already, and if we're making that view more apparent by removing screening or something, we can definitely make that that elevation softer.
Sarah is very good at distributing letters from the public. And the letter from the public, I'm sure you went to you. It included information about a previous application to the ZBA that was denied. So I'm sure you have that letter.
We have that letter, but you know, we didn't know about it till this
Okay.
week when they had that discussion, but you know, I don't know if we can get access to that initial design. I'm not
That's
sure.
another item for you to address, because it's almost 11 o'clock.
Okay.
There's a lot you need to do here.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. We got, do you guys have any other questions on this one? Or you good?
No, we're gonna ask the public now. Sarah, anything on Zoom?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak and there were no comments in the chat.
There is public present in the room and we're asking them to come up to the microphone.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian Burke. I'm here with my wife, Trish Waters. We own the property at 5 Willow Street, which will be most affected by this site development plan. We sent the board a letter on Monday that was referenced earlier. I'm not familiar with your procedures. Will that letter be entered into the record of this proceeding, or do I need to read it into the record?
I think we have a grasp of
Included in the record.
in the record.
Okay, then I won't repeat the what we state in the letter. What we are.
Well-written letter, by the way.
Thank you very much. The reason we're here tonight is we consider this proposed addition to be something that's going to really change our lives and our ability to enjoy our property. We were down this road, as I say in the letter, almost 20 years ago. And the zoning Board of Appeals unanimously agreed with our position that this kind of a two-story addition, which is the way they described it in the letter that John Malone sent us, would have a severe effect on our property. And the light and air that currently is available to our property would be cut off by the blank wall on the west elevation that you were discussing earlier. You really can't appreciate this unless you visit the properties and to see where the dwellings are currently positioned on the two lots. These two lots are unique to the block because rather than going all the way across the block, these two lots stop in the middle. So our two homes are very close together, only 10 feet away from the property line. But that is ameliorated by the footprint of the existing homes because they're offset on a north-south axis. And therefore we can look out most of our windows and not see the neighboring house. We can see all the way across Oak Street and we get a lot of light in on our eastern side. That's going to change dramatically if you allow this plan to go forward. So we spoke with our neighbors once we got the plan, told them our concerns. They said that they would speak to John Malone, and they said that it was going to go ahead at the meeting tonight, so we needed to show up and put our concerns on the record, which is what we've done.
Okay, thank you. I did visit the site several times and I walked around up Station Road and around Oak to the next house to the south. And so I'm aware of how it's situated. And, you know, keep in mind, that was a zoning board ruling. They look at things differently than we do. So we're at a different level right now. And there's no predicting what the zoning board, we don't have the plans of what the zoning board denied. It maybe it wasn't the full height of what's being.
Well, I can
proposed.
tell you it was in exactly the same position, and I don't know if you
Was
want
it
to
the
get
same
into
height?
it. Well, I don't want to get into a discussion of whether it was a half a story higher or
Oh,
not,
right.
but it was described as a two-story addition.
Right.
John described it as a 1.5 story addition tonight, but when you look out our window, the peak of the new addition is going to come to the bottom of the attic window on their house. So they do have a finished attic in that house. And to my way of thinking, that's a two-story addition, but
Okay.
I'll defer to the experts.
Thank you. I just wanted to be clear. And you brought up a good question that I didn't think to ask John. John, you're in a view preservation district, you have to address that.
Right, so the view preservation district affects views of the river from new construction. So the fact that the perks are on the west side, this would not affect any views of the river, but that doesn't mean that we'll ignore the impacts that they describe in their letter. I think what we could do and what I would propose is do a section through our proposed addition and include their house so that we can assess any impacts that it would have on the daylight. We believe that the ridge is low enough that any effect on the light from the east it will be minimal. So basically the ridge of what we're proposing is 9 feet down or almost a full story down, or it is a full story down from the ridge above. And so that's why I corrected myself today to say that it's 1.5 stories. So a half story is when the occupation is within the gable attic space, which is what is shown here. So it was incorrect to really say that was 2-story.
Like I said, it's getting late. You have
Okay, sorry, too much talking. All right, so we'll provide some additional information about the impact. And I guess my one question while the neighbor is available is the concern about the blankness of the wall also, which Caesar brought up about the lack of openings on that wall. Is that a concern as well?
Yeah, we will be staring at a stucco wall, but that's our main concern is the light and the lack of the view that we have now, not so much as whether there will be a window in that wall.
Okay.
And John, don't forget the view preservation.
Yeah, we'll take care of that also. That's right. That's on the list, I believe.
It sounds like from visually raising her hand, she may want to say something.
Hi, I'm Trish Waters and I live at 5 Willow Street. I just wanted to address a question that you just asked about whether we objected to a blank wall. Whether or not you put a window there on that west wall or not, it's still going to be in effect a wall there. And an obstruction, thank you. The other thing are the arborvitae, which you said you don't like. I mean, we look out our window and we see green coming up. It's lovely to us. It's also a very natural barrier there. And right now, out of my kitchen window and out of our upstairs window, I look out and I see trees and I can see the sky. And whether the addition is 1.5 stories or even actually 1 story, if the gable is high enough, it'll block all that. And it's just it's the Achilles heel of these lots. We knew it when we bought our place, and our neighbors knew it when they bought theirs.
Yeah,
So
the neighborhood is highly developed. I skipped over asking the board. I went right to the public. Glory.
I have no questions.
And
No questions, thank you.
Mike Smith.
No question.
Mike Bufuko.
No questions.
Okay, John, I think you got enough to work on.